Assalamualaikum.
Walaikum
Sufyan,
salam.
thank you for coming back again.
Thank you for having me again.
We hope to have you many times more.
Inshallah.
Just want to tell the audience that most of the conversation will be in English, and the reason why is that both the speaker and I feel more comfortable discussing these grand ideas in English because, unfortunately, even though we're Pakistani, we were brought up in an English medium environment. So don't hold that against us.
So this is making excuses for me.
No. But we will try to add.
We'll mix it up.
We'll mix it up as much as we can. But it's very good that you guys do listen to the English podcast as well, because the language that we have learned large concepts in becomes easier to explain in that language. उर्दू में हम बहुत ट्रांसलेट करते हैं, इसलिए अक्सर आप लोग कमेंट करते हैं कि आपके उर्दू का ये लफ्ज़ नीचे गलत था, वो क्योंकि हमने दिमाग में उस वक्त ट्रांसलेशन कर रहे होते हैं, बल्कि सलमान अक्सर हम पे हंस भी रहा होता है करते हुए. एनीवे, टुडे एक्चुअली द रीज़न व्हाई वी गॉट टुगेदर ऑन सच शॉर्ट नोटिस एंड आर डूइंग दिस एक्चुअली वेरी लेट एट नाइट इज़ बिकॉज ये जो पूरा नैरेटिव है कि पाकिस्तान का इलेक्शन और पाकिस्तान की डेमोक्रेसी फ्री ऑफ इंटरफेरेंस होती है और उसकी जो जहन साजी और प्राइमिंग होती है वो दुनिया के हर अखबार में नहीं हो रही होती, तो वीड एक्चुअली लाइक टू स्टार्ट बाय गोइंग ओवर अ स्मॉल आर्टिकल, लाइक एक बड़ी ही छोटी सी मैगजीन है, न्यूयॉर्क टाइम्स, मे बी यू गाइस हैव हर्ड ऑफ इट, ठीक है. एंड व्हाट इज़ गोइंग ऑन इन पाकिस्तान इज़ द आर्टिकल्स टाइटल. It was put up on March 28, 2024, which is about 6-7 days ago.
So this is really interesting, right? Because it was all over Twitter that the Express Tribune is the local partner of the New York Times and publishes an international version of the New York Times, right, as a kind of supplement to the local Express Tribune paper. Now, this is what, I don't know if the audience can see this, but this is what made headlines. The absence of a headline or the absence of this article made headlines in Pakistan, right? So this is the opinion page of the New York Times in print with a blank.
So for those of you to understand, like this is what is available in Pakistan if you don't have an online subscription of the New York Times, meaning that an entire article was removed. And Sufyan, I'd just like to go over what was written at the bottom. There's a small note at the bottom as to why the entire article is censored, and New York Times actually did not even fill that space off locally. So it's a completely blank page, which is, quite insane for a newspaper to have. Like they didn't even put an ad over here.
Yeah, because this space is money, right?
Yes. So this article was removed for print by our publishing alliance in Pakistan. The New York Times and editorial staff had no role in its removal. To read this article, visit online New York Times. So basically what they're saying is कि जो local partner था उनका यहाँ पे, which is basically the Express Tribune, had to remove this article. Wallahu alam why. But I think we all know why once we'll go into what the article is about.
So this article is really interesting because obviously, like, if you see a blank page, you're going to think there must be something really extraordinary about this article that it was removed. And so then you've got to go online. And when you go online, you see that there's an article called, or an op-ed rather, a guest essay, opinion piece, called What is Going On in Pakistan, which was published in the US on the 28th of March. This is the paper that came out on the 30th of March in Pakistan. This is published on the 28th of March. And it's called What is Going On in Pakistan. And the author is Dr. Aisha Siddiqa of Military Inc. fame, who's been writing for many years about the Pakistani military and its role in geopolitics and its role in geoeconomics and about the influence that it has in Pakistan, both politically and over the country's economy. And I think a lot of people first learned from an academic perspective about the influence of Pakistan's army by reading Dr. Aisha Siddiqa or reading people influenced by her or who learned from her. Of course, we've all experienced firsthand in a myriad of ways the influence of the Pakistan's military on the economy, but this was probably the first time that it was expressed in an academic manner. So this is her article. But when you read this article, it's actually, there are a lot of layers to it, right? So it's really quite fascinating. In this article, Dr. Aisha Siddiqa speaks about the military as the country's most vital institution, right? And in the very first paragraph, she kind of frames the military as a force that was recognized by the majority of the country as a force for good, holding the country together. She writes, many Pakistanis saw this, i.e. military interventions, as salvation from the country's blundering politicians. The army, it was thought, was the only force capable of holding the country together. The question that she's interested in now is whether the generals can keep themselves together. So this is really interesting. Now remember that the title of the essay is What is Going On in Pakistan? So for Aisha Siddiqa, the most important question is whether the generals can keep themselves together. And this is really interesting framing, right? Because I think that most people in the aftermath of the election probably feel that what happened in the election, the allegations of rigging and the way the government was formed, is actually the most important issue in the country, not whether the generals can keep themselves together. But let's keep reading. It's really interesting. So she goes on to say the military has suffered a catastrophic loss of prestige after the populist former Prime Minister Imran Khan directly challenged its influence. In response, Mr. Khan was ousted and jailed. So she acknowledges that the military was behind the ousting and jailing of Imran Khan, and also states that his political party, despite winning the most parliamentary seats in a divisive February election, was shut out of a new civilian government that took power this month with the blessing of the military leadership. Again, saying that the PDM government is here with the blessing of the military leadership. And then she goes on to say the country remains deeply polarized. And
you and I थोड़ा सा मैं इसको उर्दू में भी समझाता हूँ आपको, अगर कोई लिसनर इसको फॉलो कर रहा है. उन्होंने पहले ये मौक़िफ़ रखा कि 40-50 साल से फ़ौज ही मुल्क में हुक्मरानी कर रही है और सियासी जमातें जो गवर्नमेंट बनाती भी हैं उनको वो अंदर बाहर अपनी मर्ज़ी से करते हैं. और ये इलेक्शन भी फ़र्क नहीं था, सिर्फ इसके अंदर डिफरेंस ये था कि जिस जमात ने सबसे ज़्यादा सीटें जीती थी, सिमिलर टू लेट्स से 70 वाले इलेक्शंस जब सारा मामला हुआ था ईस्ट पाकिस्तान का, उन्होंने खैर ये मिसाल नहीं दी, लेकिन आपको समझाने के लिए मैं ये मिसाल दे रहा हूँ. तो खान साहब को जेल में कर दिया गया और जिस जमात ने सबसे ज़्यादा सीटें जीती उसको सरकार बनाने नहीं दी गई. और ये सारी प्रॉब्लम आइडेंटिफाई करके उन्होंने कहा कि मुल्क बहुत ही टूट चुका है, डिवाइड हो चुका है.
मगर सबसे मज़ेदार बात यह है कि वो कह रही है कि लोग हमेशा फ़ौज के मुदाखलत पसंद करते थे या उसको वेलकम करते थे.
ऐसे ही,
राइट. एंड द पॉलिटिशियंस आर डिस्क्राइब्ड एज ब्लंडरिंग, right? Whereas the army is thought of as salvation. So this is a very interesting contrast that she's making. Now we can read further, and she basically, again, now the question is, the greater concern for General Sayyid Asim Munir, the army chief, is that the polarization extends into the military itself. It is common knowledge, okay, in Pakistani political circles that significant portions of the military leadership, powerful military families, and rank-and-file officers are sympathetic to Mr. Khan's right-wing, anti-American vision for the country, which included aligning Pakistan more closely with Russia and China. So there's a lot to unpack here. But whether this internal rift can be healed will ultimately decide the direction and stability of Pakistan, which has nuclear arms and is the world's fifth most populous nation.
Yes.
So,
actually, why don't you read the next paragraph?
Should I read the next paragraph also?
Time kar jata hai.
These divisions could hardly come at a worse time for Pakistan. The economy is near collapse, and General Munir is working to repair relations with Washington that were badly frayed by Mr. Khan's politics. Pakistan is beset by political and security challenges on all sides, including by its arch rival, etc., etc. Talking about different challenges that Pakistan is facing. Goes on to say the military, of course, bears much of the blame for the country's predicament after the decade-long military regime. She goes through the history of the last of Pervez Musharraf's rule and then the last 10 years. Now, when you go further, it says the military leadership sought a more cooperative political partner to help face these challenges and counterbalance the entrenched parties. It paired up with Mr. Khan, a popular cricket star turned politician who had been a supporter of General Musharraf's government and a harsh critic of Pakistan's dynastic political families, which he accuses of corruption. It backfired. Mr. Khan, who was elected Prime Minister in 2018, inflamed Pakistanis with his calls to tear down the political establishment and reject American influence. But with inflation hitting double digits, he faced growing public criticism of his handling of the economy. He accused the military of conspiring with the United States to force him out, creating a rift. With the political crisis threatening to add to the economic problems, he was removed from office by a parliamentary no-confidence vote in April 2022 that bore the fingerprints of the military leadership. She goes on to say later, As last month's elections approached, the military took steps to ensure Mr. Khan's party would not win. He was sentenced just before the election to long prison terms on much questioned charges of corruption and leaking state secrets, and severe restrictions were imposed on his party, Pakistan Tehreek-e-Insaf. But here is the most interesting part of the article. And I think we should go over it. Maybe this has been too much of reading of the article. But the framing is extremely interesting. It says that in addition to withering economic and security landscape, that government now faces large swaths of Pakistanis who feel the election was stolen. The military, which is propping up the government, is powerful enough that it might very well weather the damage to its reputation, but it needs to get its own house in order. So this is the prescription that she's making.
Yes.
Serving and retired officers have explicitly called for General Munir to take a softer approach toward Imran Khan, and it is widely known in Pakistan that members of some military families participated in last May's protests over how Mr. Khan was being treated. General Munir is busy trying to extinguish that fire, reminding officers that the violence last May targeted the military and moving to gag dissent within the armed forces to stop pro-Khan sentiments from spreading further. He may succeed in the short term, but this story is far from over. Now note this very carefully. General Munir's 3-year term expires in November of next year, and many officers expect that his successor could be more sympathetic to Mr. Khan. The enmity between the two men is widely believed to stem from a personal rivalry. We'll come back to this.
Yes.
Perhaps even leading to new elections and Mr. Khan's return to the political stage. This would not be unprecedented. But let's go further. This is where things could get dangerous for Pakistan. This means if Mr. Khan returns, it will be dangerous for Pakistan. Mr. Khan has remained intransigent, refusing to negotiate with his rivals in the military and political establishment. Many fear where a vengeful Mr. Khan could lead Pakistan if he were to return. And yet if General Munir tries to extend his tenure to retain the status quo, military disunity could flare. Army unity looks likely to hold for the time being, but all is not well in the military fraternity. Unless Pakistan's generals can patch the rift over Mr. Khan, the country's political stability, its security, and its future will be difficult to predict. I'm actually not sure if from this reading, the audience will be able to kind of understand the prescription and the perspective that she's trying to provide over here.
I mean, that's why you're here.
I'm trying. I'm trying. Let's see if this actually works.
Just एक मैं राउंड अप दे दूँ इस आर्टिकल की डिस्कशन का जनरली उन्होंने बेसिकली आइडेंटिफाई किया कि पाकिस्तान की सियासत में आर्मी मुदाखलत करती है, अपनी मर्ज़ी से बंदे चुनती है, लेकिन जो लाइट में उन्होंने पेंट किया, जिस नज़रिए से दिखाया, तो उन्होंने इसको आउटराइटली बुरी चीज़ नहीं कहा, क्योंकि उन्होंने बार बार ये भी कहा कि जो सियासतदान हैं वो बेवकूफ़ हैं, उनको समझ नहीं है वो क्या कर रहे हैं. और इमरान खान को इन पर्टिकुलरली उन्होंने कहा एक राइट विंग यानी कि एक्सट्रीम वर्जन है आदमी का, जो बेसिकली सिर्फ सियासी इंतकाम चाहता है और अमेरिका से नेगोशिएट नहीं करता, बल्कि उन्होंने दुनिया को 2 सुपर पावर्स के लेंस से दिखा दिया कि एक अमेरिका का ब्लॉक है और एक चाइना रशिया का ब्लॉक है. और इमरान खान की शायद ख्वाहिश थी चाइना रशिया के साथ जुड़ने की, जो ये बात पसंद नहीं आती. ये आर्टिकल बहुत सारे इल्ज़ाम लगाता है फ़ौज के ऊपर, पाकिस्तान की सियासत में मुदाखलत के कुछ इल्ज़ाम अमेरिका पे भी लगते हैं. इन इल्ज़ामों के बाद जो सलूशन अकल में आता है वो ये है कि यार हमें फिर उन चीज़ों को रिजेक्ट करना चाहिए जो हमारी जमहूरियत को डिरेल करते हैं, लेकिन दवाई वो डॉक्टर प्रिस्क्राइब नहीं कर रही. मैं एक डॉक्टर है, उसने आपका रिज़ल्ट निकाला है कि आपको ज़ुकाम है, आपको पैनाडोल एक्स्ट्रा चाहिए, लेकिन ज़ुकाम का रिज़ल्ट निकाल के उसने आपको पैनाडोल नहीं दी, उसने कहा ज़ुकाम आपके लिए अच्छा है, आपको नहीं पता. ये बेसिकली एक थोड़ा सा वार्प्ड वर्ल्ड व्यू और ओपिनियन है, और इसको अभी हम थोड़ा इंशाल्लाह अनपैक करेंगे.
तो बिल्कुल ऐसा ही है कि ये मतलब बजाय कहने के पाकिस्तान के फ़ौज को सियासत में या सोसाइटी में मुदाखलत नहीं करनी चाहिए, बेसिकली वो कह रही है कि द मोर डेंजरस ऑप्शन इज़ अ वेंजफुल इमरान खान कमिंग टू पावर, एंड द स्प्लिट इन द मिलिट्री कैन ओनली बी हील्ड इफ द सपोर्टर्स ऑफ मिस्टर खान are handled essentially by the current military leadership under General Munir. And she specifically mentions the danger in someone replacing General Asim Munir after his 3-year term expires.
Yes, yeah.
So what is extraordinary is that I think a very reasonable reading of this article is that General Asim Munir should receive an extension. And considering the audience of American policymakers, influencers, that the New York Times has and speaks to, you're basically saying that you need to support General Asim Munir, putting down the factionalism within the army and keeping Imran Khan out of office, because if somebody else comes in and allows Imran Khan to run, he could very well win the next election and take control of the country. And you see then all of the same tropes in which Pakistan is represented in the West being replayed here. Pakistan is a nuclear armed country. Pakistan's army, and I think this is probably why this article or this op-ed was censored, is it depicts the Pakistan army as if it's badly divided.
Yes.
And that there are powerful divisions within the army.
Actually यही वजह है.
यही
बाकी
वजह
तो ये आप
बाकी
समझे
तो
कि
बहुत लोग कह रहे हैं, ये सारी चीजें बहुत लोग कह रहे हैं.
नहीं, बाकी ये तो तारीफ है आर्मी की कंपेयर टू पॉलिटिक्स. पॉलिटिशियंस जो डिवीजन है फौज का, जो शायद बहुत वाज़े तरीके से उन्होंने लिख दिया, जो हम इतना पब्लिकली बात नहीं करते, खैर हम तो कर रहे होते हैं लेकिन जनरली डिस्कोर्स में नहीं होता जो मेन स्ट्रीम में है. उन्होंने एक न्यूयॉर्क टाइम्स आर्टिकल लिया. मैं ये भी बताना चाहूँगा, न्यूयॉर्क टाइम्स की स्पेसिफिक ऑडियंस है बाइडेन एडमिनिस्ट्रेशन. तो ये एक डेमोक्रेटिक बेस्ड तर्ज है चीज़ को देखने का, डेमोक्रेटिक पार्टी अमेरिका की. और इस वक्त इलेक्शंस भी आ रहे हैं. आपने कुछ चीज़ें देखी होंगी बाइडेन एडमिनिस्ट्रेशन ने करना शुरू की हैं अपीज़ करने के लिए मुस्लिम और पाकिस्तानी वोटर बेस को. ट्रंप भी कर रहा है, रिपब्लिकन पार्टी भी कर रही है, वो इससे बरी ज़ुबान नहीं है. लेकिन ये आर्टिकल एक पाकिस्तानी खातून जो रिस्पेक्टेड जर्नलिस्ट हैं उन सर्कल्स में और इस टॉपिक की माहिर समझी जाती हैं, उन्होंने लिखा है, जहाँ पे उन्होंने दोबारा एंड में कंक्लूड किया है कि अभी टाइम है कि, और ये जिन लोगों के लिए लिखा गया है वो अमेरिकन गवर्नमेंट है, कि वो फ़ौज के साथ खड़े हों, फ़ौज की डिवाइसिवनेस ख़त्म करें जो उनमें तोड़ है, और इंश्योर करें कि जो भी सियासतदान आता है वो रिलेटिवली प्रो अमेरिका हो. और जो तस्वीर उन्होंने खींची है कि बेसिकली पाकिस्तान की इकॉनमी बहुत बुरे हाल में और उसको निकाल सिर्फ एक यूनाइटेड आर्मी सकती है. ये आपको पुश कर रहे हैं कि आप IMF लोन्स के लिए जाएं और डेट सर्विसिंग ऑफ चाइना बंद करें, क्योंकि IMF लोन्स की इस दफ़ा एक शर्त ये है कि आप डेट सर्विसिंग टू चाइना नहीं करेंगे. डेट सर्विसिंग टू चाइना बड़े इंटरेस्टिंग तरीके से पाकिस्तान में होती है. एक्चुअली पैसा चाइना को नहीं जाता, चाइना वो पैसा इस्तेमाल करता है चाइनीज़ प्रोजेक्ट्स में यहाँ पे. सो फॉर एग्जांपल लेट्स से $200 मिलियन का प्रोजेक्ट है, आपने 100 मिलियन चाइना को देना है, तो कहेंगे आप यहाँ पे लगा दें, रादर देन हम चाइना से पैसे लें तो आप यहीं पे कर दें. तो आपकी एक्चुअली इकॉनमी में पैसा घूमता है. तो डेट सर्विसिंग चाइना इज़ डिफरेंट फ्रॉम डेट सर्विसिंग IMF, जहाँ पे पैसा मुल्क से बाहर जाता है. इनफैक्ट अगर आप सिर्फ पाकिस्तान ना देखें, आप जितने ममालिक हैं जो IMF स्कीम के अंदर हैं, सेंट्रल एशिया में, साउथ ईस्ट एशिया के अंदर, तो वहाँ पे कोई भी मदाखलत एक सेकंड डोनर पार्टी से, जैसा हमारे केस में चाइना है, किसी केस में इंडिया है, किसी केस में रशिया है, उसके साथ हमेशा तनाव रहता है IMF का. और ऐसे आर्टिकल्स जो हैं वो जहन साजी करते हैं पॉपुलेशन की, जो IMF को चलाती है और बैक करती है, उस वेस्टर्न लेंस से चीज़ को देखती है. तो ये हल्के में नहीं लेना चाहिए. ये जो कॉन्सेप्ट है मदाखलत का, ये मोर देन फिजिकल मदाखलत एक्चुअली जहन साजी की गेम होती है पूरी.
I think what's most interesting, there are a number of really interesting things about this article. So first of all, the Biden administration recently wrote to Shahbaz Sharif, right, and addressed him as the legitimate winner of the election, and recognized his government and said they look forward to working with him. So that's part of the immediate context. In this situation, you have what is the US most afraid of, or has been most afraid of generally? Divisiveness in the Pakistan army, loose nukes, an anti-American populist leader, and a tilt of Pakistan towards Russia and China.
Yes.
All of those tropes are contained in this article, in which, and the sum of all fears is an Imran Khan returning to power.
He's the face of all these fears.
He is the face of all these fears. And we can look into each of these kind of allegations one by one. But what's interesting is that it is clearly saying that the blundering politicians need the firm hand of the military to guide them, and that the military needs General Asim Munir in order to lead it. Otherwise, what is going to end up happening is you will have Imran Khan coming back to power, and then a wave of anti-Americanism and pro-Russia, pro-China, and so on. So it's really quite fascinating the way this has been put together. But let's take a look at, sorry about that, let's take a look at a few other things here. Over here, now, whether Imran Khan and Asim Munir's issue has a personal rivalry or not, it may very well be a personal rivalry. But you guys should note how this journalism takes place. the circular references that are used. So you see over here that there is a hyperlink to the term personal rivalry. When you click this, you go to who are the major players after Pakistan's stunning election. Another article written in the New York Times a few weeks ago. Okay, in this case by Alan Newhouse and Christina Goldbaum. And this article, of course, does not talk about a divide in the military in the same way and doesn't advocate for an extension or anything like that. But if you go all the way down, what you see is, because I was looking and trying to figure out where is the reference here? Where is the research behind
the rift that Asim Munir and Imran Khan has zati taur pe?
ये zati rift hai.
Ye General Sayyid Asim Munir.
This is it.
Yeah.
And this is no evidence. This is just another statement. General Sayyid Asim Munir, the military's chief, is widely considered a personal rival of Mr. Khan. Full stop. So Dr. Aisha Siddiqa is using this statement as evidence
made by two other journalists
that
are not from Pakistan.
Without providing any actual substantiation or source material that General Asim Munir and Imran Khan's problem is a personal rivalry.
Yes.
Right? It may very well be a personal rivalry. There are so many different rumors out there. Maybe some of those rumors are true. But is this really the way one should substantiate a point that is so critical to the article that she's writing? Here's another really interesting thing. Going back over here. And these are things that...
Actually, Sufyan, it's very interesting that you mention this now, because if it's not a personal rivalry, like if that narrative is not sold, then why is Asim Munir doing the things to Imran Khan? Then the other allegation is much heavier and bigger. Like if you and I personally don't like each other and we're working against each other, it's still understandable. But if you and I have no personal beef and yet I'm working against you, so who's making me do this? जो एक क्वेश्चन था इमरान खान का कि ये फौज इस तरह क्यों कर रही है एकदम से, 2018 से लेके 2021 तक तो कोई प्रॉब्लम नहीं था, हम इन सिंक थे, और एकदम उन्होंने रोल फ्लिप किया, ये फ्लिप क्यों हुआ है?
So I think the most important thing to look at here is that if you want to back somebody who's going to keep the dangerous anti-American populist out, you should back the guy who has a personal rivalry with him.
Okay.
That's the most reliable thing, right?
Cover मिल जाता है.
Cover मिल जाता है, right?
लेकिन दर हकीकत meddling है, because उस cover की बुनियाद पे इतना जुल्म हो नहीं सकता.
मतलब देखें, whether it's let's assume कि the only reason why I don't know why I'm saying Dr. Asim Munir, General Asim Munir. The only reason why General Asim Munir is anti-PTI is because he has a personal rivalry with Imran Khan.
Okay.
Let's assume that for a moment. Okay. If I am going to try and pick a partner who's going to keep Imran Khan out, am I going to pick a partner who has done an interest-based calculation?
Okay.
You're not going to do that.
Yes.
You're going to pick somebody who has a personal hatred.
Okay.
Because you want to keep Imran Khan out.
You want them to take logic out of the equation.
The most reliable partner is the guy who hates Imran Khan just because he hates Imran Khan, because there's a personal enmity.
Actually, the question was, let me frame it slightly better, sorry. Is that just alone, without any international backing, do you think he would have been able to do what he's been able to do so far?
I mean, I think it's very clear that, I think this article makes it very clear that there are certain circles which this article is aimed at, that's their intended audience, who believe that Imran Khan, for whatever reason, is an anti-American, dangerous anti-American populist who leans towards Russia and China, right? And that's the story that's being sold and resold, which is why having a military government or a military-backed government with Dr. Asim Munir, General Asim Munir in power is the best, safest bet for the United States.
So basically, democracy only works for the states when it's their populist leader.
It's a nuclear-armed country. Khuda na khasta, Imran Khan comes back into power, vengeful Imran Khan on a wave of anti-American sentiment. What's going to happen?
You know, it's very
America ke liye bahut bura hoga.
This logic, right, is so flawed. Because I don't think there's anyone more sane than Putin. Like, if you look at all these leaders right now, the most trigger-happy, physically aggressive, literally forceful Putin hai, right? And he's won again. And यूक्रेन भी उसने जीत लिया है तकरीबन. ज़ेलेंस्की ने कह दिया है कि अगर यूएस एड नहीं भेजेगा हम ये जंग नहीं कर सकते.
Obviously तो शुरू से अमेरिकन एड पे चला रहे हैं.
Right. So if you are not able to control Putin or Xi or let's say Narendra Modi with his own agendas as far as global politics is concerned, then why does Pakistan completely acquiesce to every demand that America has? Because This is not a question of that we have definitive proof, where it just so happens that we keep aligning ourselves with the same belief systems, even if the population says the opposite. So the population has overwhelmingly said, at least for like 125 to 130 seats, Imran Khan. And if we assume this article is true and Imran Khan is anti-US, blah, 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 then isn't it our democratic right to be that way?
Well, who's going to hold back? I mean, I think that there is a concession that anti-American and anti-American populism is very popular in Pakistan, right?
Yes.
Because she's conceding.
Yes, that's the base of the article.
She's conceding that. So why is Imran Khan dangerous? If he had only 3 seats in parliament, he's not dangerous.
It's irrelevant.
If he's a man in the wilderness, he's not dangerous. If nobody else is anti-American along with him, he's not dangerous. He is dangerous because he's the face of the leader of anti-American sentiments in Pakistan.
And it's a huge sentiment now.
And it's a huge sentiment. So how do you control it? You use anti-democratic forces to control it. And what is the most dangerous thing in Pakistan is that there are a lot of people in the army who support Imran Khan, according to this article. I actually think that while of course we all know that there are a lot of army officers who support Imran Khan,
true.
the threat of a split in the army, the way she is depicting it, is not correct.
I actually think she doesn't have an understanding of how military operations generally work.
It's a very hierarchical organization in which even if 500 brigadiers
I
are pro
actually
Imran
think she
Khan,
listens to Haider Mehdi too much.
well,
Right? Basically,
that's actually
that is the
extremely
level of
interesting.
journalism that she has.
That's actually extremely interesting that you say that, right? Because people would say that Haider Mehdi exaggerates the splits in the army.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
But her article is also playing on that because the fear factor she's trying to create is premised on Imran Khan being extremely dangerous and Imran Khan being extremely dangerous because he's popular within the army.
Yes.
So therefore we must support General Asim Munir,
Yes.
not Dr. Asim Munir.
Yes, yes, yes.
I don't even know who that would be.
Yeah.
And we need to ensure that he is there for as long as necessary to keep Imran Khan out.
You know, it's very interesting if you think about it this way कि like आपके nukes जो हैं उसका कंट्रोल प्रोटोकॉल्स इनको पता नहीं है. मेरा ख्याल है ये जो assumption है ना कि पोस्ट USSR वर्ल्ड है और nukes के ऊपर एक ताला लगा हुआ है साइबेरिया के अंदर कोई भी लेके जा सकता है, ऐसे नहीं है. पाकिस्तान जितना भी बैकवर्ड और फाइनेंशियली डेस्टिट्यूट हो, हमारे nukes खुलेआम नहीं पड़े होते. ठीक है. एक्चुअली अमेरिका में बड़े इंटरेस्टिंग इवेंट्स हर 5-6 साल बाद होते हैं कि न्यूक्लियर वॉर है, प्लेन पे जा रहा है, किसी को पता ही नहीं है.
बिल्कुल.
ये नॉनसेंस होता रहता है. एक्चुअली हम क्योंकि एक कंटिन्यूस स्टेट ऑफ वॉर में जहाँ पे हमारे पे हर किस्म के इंटेलिजेंस अटैक्स भी हो रहे होते हैं, ये एक absurd बात नहीं है कि पाकिस्तान पिछले 25 साल से एक स्टेट ऑफ वॉर में है. एक्टिवली हमने सीक आउट किया है. तो हमारे न्यूक्लियर वेपन्स बड़े वेल प्रोटेक्टेड होते हैं और उनका जो एक्सेस का इन्फ्लुएंस अफेयर होता है बहुत थोड़ा होता है. कर्नेलों के पास नहीं होता.
देखिए,
मैं आपको यकीन
for
दिलाता हूं.
example, when the Taliban took over Swat or took over part of Swat,
Yes.
right? When Fazlullah took over part of
Yes.
Swat, there was, again in the Western press and in papers like the New York Times, the story was that Swat is 60 miles from Islamabad.
Yeah,
60 miles from Islamabad, and Pakistan's nuclear assets are within their grasp or within their reach.
Yeah.
Now, of course, that was a very dangerous and difficult time for the country, but it wasn't as if Fazlullah almost had his hands on nuclear weapons,
Yes.
but it played very well in the Western press.
Yes.
So you see that Aisha Siddiqui is using similar types of tropes over here.
I mean, exactly the same. Actually, you know, I remember reading that Swat article. It is virtually the same kind of signaling
The language,
of fear. बहुत same है और assumption से based है.
this is, you can say this is a dog whistle. I would say the quiet part is out loud. You know,
Yes.
if you use a
Yes.
term that's being used very frequently. But I mean, for instance, right? Again, which included Mr. Khan's right-wing anti-American vision for the country, which included aligning Pakistan more closely with Russia and China. CPEC,
There's many problems in this
there's so
statement.
many problems with
Yeah,
this,
yeah,
right?
yeah.
Okay, let's just talk about China, okay? CPEC was at its zenith during the Noon League government. It petered out during the PTI government.
Yes, actually, when they revisited contracts.
The maximum investment took place. Okay, why? One of the reasons why Pakistan was forced or had to take an IMF loan was because of the amount of Chinese investment that had come into the country in the previous couple of years.
Yes.
That type of investment did not continue under Imran Khan. There was no room for it to continue. Okay, most of the projects in CPEC either petered out or were abandoned under Imran Khan. So I don't really think that, from an economic standpoint at least, there's any way to argue that Imran Khan was working more closely with China than the previous two governments had. In fact, and we all know that CPEC is closely looked after, administered by the military. Just like now,
It's actually
under
military,
SIFC.
It's actually a military project.
It's actually a military
This
project.
is completely nonsensical and farcical to believe that Zardari or Nawaz Sharif actually had anything to do with it. Ye sare, I think, because maybe she doesn't understand the correct assumptions that you can make when large national business decisions are made, it's done by the military establishment.
So I am quite sure that she knows that, because making this statement, right, is also going against her thesis in Military Inc. Okay. So I'm quite sure that this is just being included there. Now, I don't want to ascribe any. So one
you
thing
don't want to call her disingenuous.
Look, I don't want to say that the intent of this, that she basically said a bunch of things in this article that are not true, and we'll look at a few others. For any particular reason, but I also understand that she's enough of a scholar to know that these things are not true.
Like she's smart enough to know that this is
She's smart enough to know this is false. So now,
okay.
why she's put this here, I'm not really sure, except that it sounds a lot like other articles which are basically written for scaremongering. Now, I mean, even if you look at, now we can go back to the Russia thing.
Actually, Sufyan, there's one more term that I'd like to identify as Mr. Khan's right-wing party.
Again, Mr. Khan's right-wing, anti-American vision. Now, I mean, we discussed this last time. What does it mean to be right-wing? Okay, two things. First of all, Imran Khan was not economically more right-wing than PMLN or People's Party.
I mean, they're all the same, really.
They're all quite similar, okay? Imran Khan was interviewed and he said, I'm not right-wing. I support Bernie Sanders, okay? Now, whether you believe him or you don't believe him or you think his politics is like Bernie Sanders, I mean, anyway, whether liberals think or people think or whether it's accurate or inaccurate, the Riyasat-e-Medina concept that he was trying to sell was basically that of a social welfare state, and he would always talk about his time in the UK and NHS and European welfare systems. So he's not right-wing in a way an American will understand right-wing. If by this they mean that Imran Khan is an Islamist, again, how different were his policies with respect to Islamization in society compared to PMLN?
Actually, in this particular case, I think you're giving a lot of leeway to the person who wrote the article. They're actually signaling to the second thing that you've said very clearly. When you say right-wing Muslim government in Pakistan, Bangladesh, so one image comes in mind that he's basically a religious nut.
Yeah.
This is exactly the fear-mongering that Fox used to do about different Islamic countries across the world, and it's exactly what New York Times is now doing. So this idea that Imran Khan is right-wing is actually not even an economics claim. It's not at all. In fact, all political parties in Pakistan religiously are right-wing, right? Each and every one of them has passed laws or been part of legislation that is extremely right-wing because voter base ऐसा है. So this idea कि PPP Liberal Party, हमने बहुत ये unpack किया था पिछली पॉडकास्ट, बस मैं चाहता हूँ रिपीट हुए ताकि आपको नज़र आए कि कितना दोगलापन होता है हर जगह जर्नलिस्ट के साथ. मसलन कि ये जो आइडिया है जो इस वक्त नैरेटिव पुश भी हो रहा है पाकिस्तान के अंदर कि एक जर्नलिस्टिक इंटेग्रिटी होती है, उसको फॉलो करना चाहिए, तो हमने एपिटमी जो न्यूयॉर्क टाइम्स है जो प्रॉब्ली लीडिंग है हर किस्म की वर्चू सिग्नलिंग के अंदर, उसी के आर्टिकल में हमने आपको एक बेसिक दोगलापन दिखा दिया है.
You also see, we were talking about parallels to Turkey. Basically what you're saying is that the bulwark against right-wing populism in Pakistan are not the blundering politicians who need the military to put them into government, but the military itself, and the military under this man who is a personal rival of Imran Khan, okay, and who needs time in order to fix the problems in the military. And the problem in the military is that there are too many people who are pro-Imran Khan in the military. But you know, it's just kind of funny. Asad, like, look at this. Yahan pe likha hua hai. I'm just going to try and find the paragraph where it's mentioned that Achha, isme was Imran Khan a supporter of General Musharraf's government? He was at times. He was also a critic of General Musharraf at times. He was also jailed by General Musharraf during the emergency. But yes, at times he did support General Musharraf. A little bit reductive, but theek hai. Okay? Now,
I mean, इतना लीवे तो दूंगा जो वो पहले करती रही है, तो इतना लीवे तो ठीक है, बनता है.
Now, but the thing is that
this is a very interesting paragraph that you're highlighting now.
This is extremely interesting, right? With inflation hitting double digits, he faced growing public criticism of his handling of the economy. Okay? Now, I think that we should show the audience this, that Pakistan inflation, let's look at...
Let's just put the year to year, 5 years.
Let's look at 5 years, okay?
Yeah. So it's a macro trends का article है. You can just open it up.
You can pick up any of these, right?
Yeah.
And now again,
ये सब कुछ by the way आप लोग भी गूगल कर सकते हैं. ये कोई ऐसे नहीं कि specifically हमारे पास ये चीजें हैं. This is very much
this is
readily
all
available.
publicly available information, right?
और ये पाकिस्तान गवर्नमेंट के स्टैट्स नहीं है बाय द वे, लेकिन गवर्नमेंट के स्टैट्स भी इसको मैच करते हैं.
गवर्नमेंट के स्टैट्स भी इसको मैच करते हैं, राइट? तो एग्जैक्ट इन्फ्लेशन नंबर्स शायद गवर्नमेंट के फर्क हो और वर्ल्ड बैंक के फर्क हो,
लेकिन ट्रेंड आपको नजर आ जाएगा.
ट्रेंड आपको नजर आ जाएगा. ठीक है, ये ट्रेडिंग इकोनॉमिक्स है, ठीक है, आपको एक ही चीज नजर आएगा. नाउ लुक एट दिस, ओके, 5 years. This period of time was Imran Khan's government.
Up until I would say 2022 का middle.
ठीक है. Now inflation when Imran Khan was removed was 13.4%. Okay? Every month after that, inflation has basically gone up. Until recently, it's gone down a bit. But inflation...
But not to Imran Khan levels.
No, not to Imran Khan levels. Inflation is still at 20%. So how are you saying that Imran Khan mishandled the economy and there's double-digit inflation? Achha, this too, in the aftermath of Corona, when the entire world was going through an inflationary period.
Actually, Sufyan, if you go to 2020, right, that's basically post-Corona दुनिया खुलती है, right?
It was 8.5%.
आप पीछे करें.
Can we stop by the way?
See, I want you to go back, right?
Okay,
like I want you to go to this point.
This point?
So 14.6 Jan of 2020, post-Corona world opening up is what he inherits. And then he actually brings it down and it never reaches that same high post-Corona.
So
that's actually a win in my book, right?
So exactly, like, I mean, again, would the economy have tanked under Imran Khan the same way it did under PDM? You can speculate, but the fact of the matter is, okay, without going into counterfactuals, inflation was much lower under Imran Khan than it was under PDM. And part of the reason why PTI won such a large number of seats or such a large number of votes was because of the high inflation rate, महंगाई, under PDM. So for Aisha Siddiqa to say that Imran Khan mishandled the economy with double-digit inflation, right?
ये misrepresent कर रही है.
Totally misleading, right? Why she's written it that way, we can only speculate, but it's completely misleading.
Yes, it
right?
is.
So then if you go over here, then the next statement, he accused the military of conspiring with the United States to force him out, creating a rift. He accused the military after the vote of no confidence, not prior to the vote of no confidence.
Yes,
in fact, a lot of people rightly pointed out that Imran Khan was being disingenuous because he was not mentioning that the military was responsible for or involved in removing him. He kept talking about America, Donald Lu, Cypher. Then he started Mir Jafar, Mir Sadiq, all of that. And लोग कह रहे थे कि यार ये तो झूठ बोल रहा है. मिलिट्री ने किया है, अमेरिका ने तो किया नहीं है, या अगर अमेरिका ने किया भी है
तो थ्रू मिलिट्री
किया, तो मिलिट्री का नाम क्यों नहीं ले रहा है?
असल में डील बनाने का चाह रहा था.
हाँ, डील बनाना चाह रहा था.
रियलिटी है बात की. ये बात की रियलिटी है.
हाँ, कि इमरान खान डील बनाना चाह रहा था, अपने लिए एक जगह छोड़ना चाह रहा था कि अभी भी डील बन सकता है, मैं वापस आ सकता हूँ. अच्छा, ये सबको पता है, मुझे भी पता है, डॉक्टर आयशा सिद्दीका को भी पता है. Nevertheless, she's reversed the timeline in which he accused the military of conspiring with the United States to force him out, creating a rift with the political crisis threatening to add to the economic problems, which, as we've explained, is again disingenuous or misleading. He was removed from office by a parliamentary no confidence vote in April 2022 that bore the fingerprints of the military leadership.
यानी उन्होंने concede किया.
हाँ, concede किया. But सबसे मजे की बात यह है कि while she concedes to repeated interventions of the military, in the framing of this article, वो जो interventions हैं, वो एक बुरी चीज़ नहीं है. अगर आप big geostrategic picture देखें अमेरिका के नज़र से, तो बुरी चीज़ नहीं है, क्योंकि सबसे डेंजरस चीज़ अमेरिका के लिए है इमरान खान.
एक्चुअली इसमें एक अजम्पशन है, लोगों को मैं बता दूं कि अमेरिका सही है और मॉरल है. इस आर्टिकल रीक करता है इस अजम्पशन से कि अमेरिका कोई भी स्टांस ले क्योंकि वो मॉरली करेक्ट है, लिहाजा अगर वो किसी इलाके में लेट से जमूर से हटता भी है कि क्योंकि वो मॉरली ओवरऑल करेक्ट है, तो वो पुलिस कर सकता है कि यहाँ जमूर है, यहाँ जमूर नहीं है. और ये डुअलिटी एक्चुअली हैज़ लेड टू द डाउनफॉल ऑफ अमेरिकन एम्पायर. और ये इज़राइल और फ़लस्तीन वाले मामले में सबसे ज़्यादा खुल के सामने आ गई है, जो करंटली 7 अक्टूबर का हुआ है. ये आर्टिकल आप सोच लें एक छोटा पाकिस्तान सेंट्रिक है, पर ये एक्चुअली अमेरिकन पॉलिसी की कॉन्ट्रडिक्शंस दिखाता है फॉर अ पाकिस्तानी ऑडियंस टू अंडरस्टैंड वेरी इजीली.
अच्छा, एक और मज़े की बात है इसमें कि शी मेंशंस दैट ही वन द लार्जेस्ट नंबर ऑफ सीट्स in the election that just took place, okay, but was kept from power by engineering the current coalition government. But she does not mention that the election is rigged. Okay? Because there's a difference between PTI winning 90 seats fair and square against 70 seats fair and square, and a coalition of other parties being put together to keep them out of power. Okay? Versus PTI really winning 130, 40, 50, 110, whatever number of seats, a larger number of seats that would have given them an outright majority, right? And then by the rigging being prevented from making a government. Which is a massive part of the discourse in Pakistan. Which is the discourse in Pakistan, and she's completely ignored that. In fact, what she says, okay, is that people feel that the election was stolen. Okay, I'm trying to look for that.
I remember you read it.
Right? She said, people feel that the election was stolen. Okay. Now, what does that sound like?
That's basically saying that people are too dumb to understand what actually happened, और उनको तासुर ये दिया जा रहा है कि इलेक्शन चोरी किया गया, हालांकि चोरी नहीं किया गया, लेकिन ये डायरेक्टली कहने के बजाय उन्होंने इम्प्लिसिटली कह दिया.
जिस तरह ट्रंप ने लोगों को बेसिकली भड़काया है, राइट, और उनको झूठ बोला है, बताया है कि जो बाइडेन स्टोल द इलेक्शन, एंड दैट्स व्हाई पीपल फील इरैशनली फील that the election was stolen.
Oh,
the same language, right? Reflecting or mirroring that same language is in this article.
But I'm surprised he didn't give the exact example of Trump.
I mean, you're saying that there's a dangerous right-wing populist, right? With a country that has nuclear weapons.
I mean, she could have said it directly.
She could have said it directly.
New York Times does run that kind of garbage. Yeah. But everything she's... okay. So basically, Biden administration को वो दिखा रही है कि एक ट्रम्प लाइक कैरेक्टर है पाकिस्तान में, उसके वो सारे एट्रीब्यूट्स हैं, उस पर क्रैकडाउन करना ज़रूरी है. बिकॉज अमेरिका में इस वक्त बहुत बड़ी डिबेट है कि ट्रम्प के खिलाफ जो मुकदमे हो रहे हैं, क्या वो आइन और कानून के मुताबिक हैं या पॉलिटिकल विक्टिमाइजेशन है एक बंदे की डीप स्टेट की तरफ से. क्योंकि डीप स्टेट हर जगह एग्जिस्ट ज़रूर करता है. ये आप समझ लें डीप स्टेट है या अशराफिया या पावर्स दैट ऑलवेज बी है, वो हर जगह ये चीज़ है. इस आर्टिकल से एक और चीज़ याद आ रही है मुझे सुफियान, प्री रशिया यूक्रेन वॉर जो ज़ेलेंस्की गवर्नमेंट क्रैकडाउन कर रही थी और जिस तरह न्यूयॉर्क टाइम्स और अमेरिकन मीडिया उसको कवर कर रहा था इन अ पॉजिटिव लाइट, तो वो सॉर्ट ऑफ प्राइम कर रहे होते हैं एक इलाके की पॉपुलेशन को जंग के लिए.
Yeah, this is so. What's interesting, right, is that this article is being written by an expert on the military who knows all of the ills of the Pakistani military and has.
वो इस पे लिख चुकी हैं.
वो लिख चुकी है. ठीक है. In fact, she's the authority on it. But in this, it seems that her prescriptions for the country are reversed. Now, if you believe in Military Inc., which you and I also believe, the natural response to that is that the country should be democratic.
सबको मिलिट्री इंक बाय द वे पढ़नी चाहिए, हम उसके लिंक शेयर करेंगे, आप ज़रूर देखें, बहुत आई ओपनर है. बाकी फैक्ट्स के साथ आपको नज़र आता है कि कैसे असल में मुल्क में फ़ौज का टेक ओवर ऑपरेशन चलता है. एक तो मफरूज़े होते हैं ना जो हम बात करते हैं कि चाचे के फुप्पे के ताए ने बता दिया, लेकिन ये कंपाइल्ड फॉर्म्स को ज़रूर पढ़िएगा और फिर इस आर्टिकल से कंपेयर करिएगा तो आपको एक चीज़ नज़र आएगी कि किस तरह लिबरल अथॉरिटेरिज्म हर जगह बड़ी प्रेवलेंट है. ये एक टर्म है सुफियान ने पिछली पॉडकास्ट में भी कही थी और हमने कहा था इसका आप मतलब ज़रूर देखें, और उसमें हमने आपको उर्दू में भी समझाया था, लेकिन ये बहुत क्रिटिकल है. जी,
I mean, this is what you basically, the biggest enemy, right, was the establishment. It's now an out of control Mr. Khan. So I think this is really interesting. Also, I could pull up this article as well. Some months ago, Hussain Haqqani wrote an article which actually again said very similar things about the military being split, about military families being pro-Khan.
I think that's the article जो नदीम फारूक प्राचा वगैरह ने कराची लिटरेचर फेस्टिवल पे कोट किया था, जिसके बाद हमारी वो सारी गुफ्तगू हुई थी पिछली पॉडकास्ट में. तो उसका ट्रिगर पॉइंट एक्चुअली हुसैन हक्कानी था, और जो बुक भी सजेस्ट करते हैं री इमेजिनिंग पाकिस्तान, वो भी इसी लेंस में है एक्चुअली.
Hussain Haqqani wrote this article. Actually, I think it was written for an Indian publication.
Okay.
And it was, let's just say, Army.
Transforming a dysfunctional nuclear state article आया था नीचे. Is that the one?
It could be.
I think so it is.
Could be. Let's take a look. Hussain Haqqani, look at this. Army cannot remain unaffected by Pakistan's divisions.
It's an India Today article.
This could be it.
Yeah.
Okay. Let's take a look at this. Okay. You may just see a few similar things. This is India Today. Okay. Hussain Haqqani, former ambassador of Pakistan to the United States. Okay. At one time, he was considered to be a traitor. Now he's considered to be a patriot. Again, he'll be considered to be a traitor. And ye cheezein chalti rehti hain, right? Okay. Now, At a time of intense polarization in Pakistani society, the army cannot remain unaffected by intense divisions among Pakistanis. Imran Khan enjoys massive popularity in military families, which have spent the last 3 decades hating the country's traditional politicians. Serving and retired military officers and their children have had a privileged life since the days of General Ziaul Haq, and most of them buy into the overly simplistic view that Pakistan's only problem is politicians who are crooks or traitors. Since in their view, Imran Khan is neither, and he also reflects nationalist jazba. Again, irrational people who think that, Imran Khan, because he reflects nationalist jazba and used to wear Pakistan green as a cricketer, he is the only civilian leader acceptable to them. Okay? Completely, by the way, also evading the point that they've turned against their own institution. I'm saying if he is saying that these are military families who have now turned against their own institution, but what does that mean in terms of what they think
of their own
establishment and what their establishment is doing, right? In my book Reimagining Pakistan, he's plugging his book, I have explained the concept of jazba. I have explained the concept of jazba, which means passion, spirit, and strong feeling or emotion, a uniquely Pakistani blend of religion, patriotism, and antagonism towards India. Now, this is written for an Indian audience, okay?
And then the United States and anyone.
The United States and anyone else who might interfere with the greatness for which Pakistan is just destined. For those who believe jazba is the guarantor of Pakistan's success in all fields, from the sport of cricket to the economy to warfare, okay? The believers in jazba, I'm sorry for all of the ads, okay?
That's fine.
The believers in jazba often do not analyze, they only emote, okay? So the supporters of Imran Khan do not analyze, they only emote. For them, Pakistan's problems are not the result of bad policies. They are attributable to the lack of sincerity and jazba of someone or the other. Imran Khan's engineered political rise was largely based on the jazba narrative. In fact, his hardcore followers speak of jazba junoon, or the spirit of madness, in loving him as Pakistan's savior.
Hold on, I would just like for you to pause here. See, this is the kind of
total contempt.
No, it's like stupidity, right? So for you to make anything successful, चाहे वो कारोबार हो, चाहे वो नौकरी करते हो, चाहे भी कोई भी मूवमेंट होती है, तो वो बनती ही जज्बा और जुनून पे है. Actually, people need to rally around somebody to push anything through. ये पॉसिबल ही नहीं है. बेसिकली वो जज्बा और जुनून इस वक्त अकॉर्डिंग टू दीज पीपल आसिम मुनीर के पीछे होना चाहिए और वो खान साहब के पीछे है, और ये इनके पे मास्टर्स को सूट नहीं करता. मैं इनको इसी लेंस में देखता हूँ. ये आइडिया के जज्बे और जुनून के बगैर कुछ भी होता है इज़ जस्ट रिडिकुलस. मतलब ये तो एक नॉन सेंसिकल फार्सिकल चीज़ है. एक्चुअली दिस इज़ अ प्रॉब्लम ऑफ literary circles generally. If you hang out with them and you meet them, they intellectualize so many things that they sort of remove the human element from it.
I mean, look at this, right? That the army nurtured the jazba narrative that propelled Imran Khan into power and is now finding it difficult to get men and women who live in or have grown up in cantonments to change their worldview just because senior generals have realized its limitations. Meaning जो senior generals हैं वो analytical लोग हैं, उनको समझ में आ गया कि हमने गलती की है. ये जो जज्बा narrative है जिसके तहत हमने इमरान खान को basically हम पावर में लेके आए, अब हमें समझ में आ गया, मगर ये जो बाकी कंटोनमेंट लोग ये बेवकूफ़ है. Right?
Actually, उससे अगली लाइन आप पढ़ें.
Right?
Pakistan generals have always been divided between pragmatists who realize the complexities of the world, यानी कि smart generals,
the smart generals,
and those who are ideologically to the point of ignoring everything else, यानी कि the dumb generals.
The latter are often drawn to conspiracy theories, which Imran Khan also loves spreading. Okay?
I mean, ये भी ट्रम्प कहना चाह रहा है, लेकिन क्योंकि इंडियन ऑडियंस और इंडिया में ट्रम्प की बहुत मोहब्बत है तो ये ट्रम्प कह नहीं सकता.
अच्छा, कौन से कंस्पिरेसी थियरीज है हमें भी नहीं पता. अच्छा, बट मस्ट हैव बीन साइफर, क्योंकि साइफर वाज मेड अप. वो कंस्पिरेसी थियरी था, साइफर तो नहीं था, वो तो जस्ट अ ब्लैंक पीस ऑफ पेपर, रिसीट थी. मतलब again, former Army General Qamar Javed Bajwa had thought that he could use Imran Khan's charisma and celebrity status to create a political force that would keep traditional politicians in check and enable him to drive from the backseat while maintaining the trappings of democracy. Largely correct statement.
But इसमें एक inherent assumption है कि traditional politics incorrect थी.
हाँ, मतलब traditional. No, but I mean, here's the interesting thing that why are we now suddenly glamorizing, lionizing traditional politicians?
No, but here's the thing. I would say this and unequivocally so, like मुझे इसमें कोई डर नहीं है. ट्रेडिशनल पॉलिटिक्स किसी भी मिलिट्री डिक्टेटर से बेहतर है.
अच्छा, हाँ, हम एक और चीज़ भी कह सकते हैं कि ट्रेडिशनल पॉलिटिशियन से वो भी मिलिट्री से बेनिफिट लेते थे.
वो एक सेपरेट चीज़ है.
वो भी मिलिट्री बिल्ट PMLN, राइट?
मिलिट्री बैक्ड PPP.
मिलिट्री बैक्ड PPP.
अयूब की आप अगर ज़ियाउल हक की सारी ज़िंदगी देखें तो वो भी बहुत सारा उसका सेम लिटरेटी और मिलिट्री सर्कल था जिसने उसको राइज टू पावर किया था.
लोग पता नहीं क्यों भूल जाते हैं, कहते हैं कि इमरान खान इज़ अ क्रिएशन ऑफ द एस्टैब्लिशमेंट. चले, लेट्स इवन कंसीड दैट फॉर अ मोमेंट. इज़ अ क्रिएशन ऑफ द एस्टैब्लिशमेंट. नवाज शरीफ was Chief Minister Punjab when he was 2 years older than you.
Yes.
At 34, he was Chief Minister
But
Punjab.
I'm much better looking.
Yes. we'll have to accept that. We'll have to accept that. But also, he was probably 2 years younger than you when he was Finance Minister Punjab.
Yes.
Based on nothing, right?
Well, actually based upon funding and the creation of an anti-PPP force.
I mean,
Right.
he just fit into a certain mold. They
Yes.
wanted someone from a Punjabi mercantile family to take on this
That
role.
could be the face of conservative Islamization at that time. However, I think इसके अंदर ना थोड़ा सा, because I guess too much time has elapsed, अगर आप जुल्फ़िकार अली भुट्टो की भी ज़िंदगी उठाएं तो 19-20 के फ़र्क से यही हुआ था. उसको खड़ा किया गया था एक ईस्टर्न जिन के खिलाफ बेसिकली.
हाँ,
और
बिल्कुल
उसको
ऐसे
पुश
ही।
थ्रू किया था पावर सर्कल्स ने उस वक्त, क्योंकि उसका लिबरल एजेंडा था और फौज ओवरऑल एक लिबरल नैरेटिव पुश कर रही थी मोरालिटी के हवाले से. तो शायद एक सर्टेन ग्रुप है मुल्क में जो समझता है कि वो बड़ा अच्छा था. ज़ियाउल हक ने कंजर्वेटिव नैरेटिव पुश करना था क्योंकि आपने बहुत आलमी जंगें लड़नी थी अमेरिका के लिए, तो उसको एक कंजर्वेटिव फेस
You
चाहिए
don't even
था.
have to go that far back, right? Zardari or the post-Benazir People's Party government. So Benazir came back to Pakistan with an American brokered deal between the military and the People's Party, which led to the NRO. And this is not a conspiracy theory. This is an acknowledged fact. The NRO was later struck down by the Supreme Court. Okay? When under Chaudhry Iftikhar. When Zardari became president, it was a partnership between Zardari and Kiani, which involved Kiani getting an extension.
Yes.
So they were working hand in glove with the establishment also when they were in power. Then in 2013, PMLN was working with the establishment. In 2018, they decided, we've been using these two guys for long enough. Let's bring in a third force to keep control over them who will be more aligned with our natural politics.
Yes.
Okay. That didn't work out. Okay. Now, but here's where it is. When Bajwa tried to make pragmatic adjustments in Pakistan's relations with the West and India, Imran Khan stuck to the ideological paradigm. Achha, very interesting. So what they're saying is that this ideological paradigm, incidentally, was set by the army also in the first place. Okay?
Yeah, you know what? This reeks of assumed, like this assumes that your ideological paradigm or Mr. Khan's paradigm is correct. Like iska assumption hi hai, because it shows that Imran Khan sticking to an initial ideological paradigm is incorrect, and the new Bajwa doctrine was correct. India or West के साथ relations कैसे होनी चाहिए is the same as Hussain Haqqani thinks.
So Bajwa is that pragmatic, analytical army officer.
He later became. He
realized that Imran Khan was taking this ideology thing too seriously.
Yeah.
The dummies in the cantonment didn't understand that.
He drank the Kool-Aid.
Right? They had drank the Kool-Aid. Then he wanted to get rid of Imran Khan. But yeah, the most amazing thing is he's writing this in Indian paper. Okay?
Yeah, so लेकिन again आप इसकी जो intricacies देख रहे हो, मैं उसको differently देखता हूँ. इसमें बहुत सारी चीज़ें assumed हैं जो proven नहीं है कि कौन सा वर्ल्ड व्यू करेक्ट है. आपने वो सब्सटैंशिएट ही नहीं किया हुआ, तो लिहाजा जो आप तोहमत लगा रहे हो कि एक बेवकूफ़ है, एक एनालिटिकल है, वो प्रूव ही नहीं हो सकती.
हाँ, why is one better than the other, right?
आप एक चूरन बेच रहे हैं, एक प्रोडक्ट निकाल रहे हैं कि दुनिया पाकिस्तान की ऐसे होनी चाहिए. आप वो साबित करें वो क्यों होनी चाहिए, फिर आप बताएं कि कौन कौन सा प्यादा आपकी फेवर में है.
अच्छा, सबसे मजे की बात यह, I was saying that this is being written for an Indian audience, but India has openly said that we will do business with Russia whenever it suits our national interest.
Yes.
They're on record saying that, and
doing that as well.
They're doing that, and the second largest importer of Russian oil today, other than China, is India.
सबसे ज़्यादा पैसा पोस्ट यूक्रेन उन्होंने बनाया इसी गेम के ऊपर.
And India, so this is the most interesting thing. When the criticism in Pakistan, the criticism against Imran Khan is that Imran Khan was aligning with Russia, but India से ज़्यादा किसने रशिया के साथ align किया है?
कोई हिस्टोरिकली इतना बड़ा ally रहा ही नहीं है उनका.
So this, and now you're writing this in an Indian paper, pragmatic adjustment with the West, right? When India actually has been the most pragmatic because of the size of their market and their geostrategic importance, they've been able to play both sides.
Very well.
Very, very well. It's actually something that every country should learn and aspire to. In fact, even Turkey has played both sides.
Yes.
Very well, right? I mean, even as a NATO member, half of the Russian elite are sitting in Istanbul.
Yes.
Right? Their yachts are all offshore in Bodrum.
I mean, how NATO is funding ISIS and how it's still doing trade with Israel while leading the baton of Muslim nations. उन्होंने सबको बेवकूफ बनाया है.
मतलब Turkey, it's amazing, right? That Erdogan has all of this like anti-Israel rhetoric. But Turkey is one of the main trading partners with Israel.
Yes.
right?
Even right now,
Even
billions
right
का
now,
business हो रहा है.
billions का business हो रहा है right now. And what's interesting is that Erdogan, who has lost municipal elections or
Abhi,
local
हाँ,
bodies
very
elections all
recently.
across Turkey, including in Istanbul. I think he lost Ankara also. No, he may have won Ankara and lost Izmir, but he's lost the majority of municipal elections in Turkey. The secular forces or less Islamist forces who have defeated him in these elections, right? They are actually more pro-Palestinian than he is in substance.
Yes.
Because so much has been revealed and released about
In this particular conflict.
in this particular
time frame.
in this particular time frame, that whatever he's saying about being pro-Palestinian is basically just rhetoric. But I mean, if we go back here, right? Imran Khan has over the years become a master narrative builder, which is easy to do when you deliberately ignore every fact and have cult-like followers who accept everything you say. What's the basis of saying this? Khan blamed his ouster on a conspiracy by the United States and virtually called upon the army to restore him to office or hold immediate elections, which he hopes to win, okay, which he's now won. Okay, yes. The army's refusal to do so has led to stepping up of rhetoric against the army's senior commanders. Okay, again, making it sound like the cipher story was all nonsense. Okay, it is wrong to portray Khan's supporters having turned against the army or even against military intervention in politics. Again, very important part of the narrative. His party PTI has in its ranks the son of late military dictator General Ziaul Haq, the grandson of Pakistan's first coup maker, Field Marshal Ayub Khan, and all major civilian collaborators of General Pervez Musharraf. None of them publicly said anything to suggest there was anything wrong with Pakistan's past military interventions.
Okay.
Pehli baat ye hai ki many of them have said that. Okay, but
not at the time of the article. Post बहुत कुछ हुआ है.
Maybe not.
This
at the time
I
of the
feel
article.
is a fair assessment.
I would say this is a fair assessment.
Yes.
If you think that just because your father was a general, you are necessarily going to be pro the current establishment, right? As we have discussed many times, all political or most politicians and political parties have roots in military patronage.
That's how the system works.
That's how the system has worked. That does not mean that all of them retain the same opinions as post. First of all, over the last couple of years, where there's been a seismic shift in Pakistani politics, society, culture, and you cannot say that because his grandfather took this position or was a general, because there are so many military families whose children are now in politics.
I mean, roughly 8 to 9 crore people are directly affected by the military.
I mean, how many people from military, interestingly, you're saying that there are military families that are pro-Imran Khan, okay, who are anti-establishment pro-Imran Khan. And you're saying that there is no way that that PTI is anti-army because there are people from military families in that army, in PTI. Does that, I mean, it's quite a contradictory stance to take.
Again, to view the army as the establishment is incorrect. The establishment is actually a few people in the army, right? So the way the army operates is that they sort of do the same decision that most Muslims has made, कि दीन और दुनिया साथ साथ. So army दीन है और दुनिया, let's say politics और इमरान खान है. So they aspire and ascribe to a sense of responsibility and duty as far as military matters are concerned, hierarchy is concerned, but they have right to vote for whoever they want. The problem is that the way the system is set up, nobody can really toe away from the line that is given by the top hierarchy of the military. ये हुसैन हक़ानी भी इग्नोर कर रहा है अपने आर्टिकल में, जो fear mongering कर रहा है.
उसको पता है?
नहीं, इस आर्टिकल में इग्नोर कर रहा है. डिसइंजेन्युअस हो रहे हैं वो दोनों मेरे नज़दीक, और वो खातून भी इसमें कर रही है. वो ये इसलिए कर रहे हैं कि आपकी बात दुरुस्त है कि वो नैरेटिव बिल्ड करना चाहते हैं कि अमेरिका आर्मी को बैक करे, और कोई तरीका नहीं है. और इंडिया भी एक्चुअली थ्रू एनी इन्फ्लुएंस ऑफ पावर दैट इट हैज़ ऑन अदर नेशन स्टेट्स बैक करे मिलिट्री को, वो ग्रिप मेंटेन रखें. क्योंकि यार पॉपुलिस्ट लीडर का जो सबसे बड़ा फियर होता है ना जियो पॉलिटिक्स के अंदर, कि पॉपुलेशन उसके साथ आ जाती है, तो उस मुल्क की माइट बड़ी डिफरेंट हो जाती है.
उसके साथ आप बैकरूम डील नहीं बना सकते हैं.
मुश्किल हो जाता है.
बहुत मुश्किल हो जाता है. Right? Which is why even Erdogan needs to pretend that he's supporting the Palestinians because he's a populist leader, right? Or a popular leader. Let's keep the term populist out of it for a moment.
जमहूरियत होनी ही ऐसे चाहिए जहाँ पे बंदे की पॉपुलेशन से फटे, कि उसको ये डर हो कि जो अशराफिया की जियोपॉलिटिकल बैकरोड डील्स होती हैं वो नहीं बन सकती, क्योंकि मेरी तो पॉपुलेशन मुझे वोट ही नहीं करेगी, क्योंकि मैं तो पॉपुलिस्ट नैरेटिव पे आया हूँ. जब आप बिजनेस लाइक अनपॉपुलर नैरेटिव्स पे आते हैं, तो नवाज शरीफ के बारे में क्या असूम था पाकिस्तान में, यार खाता है लेकिन लगाता है, नो प्रॉब्लम. हम इस स्टेट ऑफ माइंड में ऑपरेट करते थे. इमरान खान इस स्टेट ऑफ माइंड में ऑपरेट कर नहीं सकता कि उसने क्या कहा है, मैं खाने नहीं दूँ किसी को. तो खान साहब की जब घड़ी की चोरी आती है तो वो इतनी बड़ी क्यों चुभती है इवन पीटीआई सपोर्टर्स को,
बिल्कुल
या फ़र्क होगी। हालांकि इन टर्म्स ऑफ मनी तो कंपैरिजन ही नहीं है। मसलन आपने 100 अरब डॉलर चोरी कर लिए और मैंने 50 करोड़ चोरी, मगर कंपैरिजन ही नहीं है। लेकिन उसका नैरेटिव वो है तो वो अपने आप को एक हायर बार पे रखता है। ये चीज़ इन सारे लोगों से जो अशराफिया का पार्ट हैं, अशराफिया का पार्ट हमने डेफिनेशन में समझाया था कि बहुत सारे लोग होते हैं, ये इनसे बर्दाश्त नहीं होता। बिकॉज आपने एक बात की थी कि ह्यूमन राइट्स कमीशन पाकिस्तान का काम है वर्चू सिग्नलिंग करना। अगर ईदी वो काम शुरू कर दे तो HRCP की फट जाती है, या ये तो हमारी नौकरी कर रहा है फ्री में। उसी तरह ये सारे लोग जो मिलिट्री के खिलाफ बोलते थे, उनके खिलाफ लिखते थे, अब एक पॉपुलिस्ट कर रहा है, सो इट्स नो लॉन्गर द कूल थिंग टू डू।
Look, it's really very interesting over here, right? That look at this conjecture. By speaking out against the current army leadership, these people are simply trying to get the army to put its weight behind Khan again, where they feel it rightly belongs as long as Pakistan is a democracy. If at some point Pakistan's democratic system breaks down again and direct military ruler returns, which is difficult under current circumstances, many of Khan's supporters will go back to supporting the army against corrupt politicians, minus Khan, of course. Total conjecture, complete conjecture.
It's nonsense.
In fact, I would say that there are a large number of people who have only supported Imran Khan after he became
I
anti-establishment.
think 25-30% ये वोटर उसका है इस इलेक्शन में जो एंटी एस्टैब्लिशमेंट वोट पड़ा है उसको।
देखें, if let's say 2018 elections were engineered and Imran Khan would not have won, okay? Let's accept that premise.
Yes.
Okay? Let's also accept that this election was engineered so Imran Khan could not win. And let's say there's 50 seats difference between what Imran Khan should have won in 2018 and what he really won now. Where have those 50 seats come from?
Anti-establishment vote.
Anti-establishment vote.
Yes.
Right? And those people...
Anti-establishment and महंगाई vote.
Anti-establishment and महंगाई vote. Exactly.
Double whammy था.
Double whammy. Okay, चलें 25 seats are anti-establishment.
100%.
Okay?
ये
25 seats are
assessment है.
anti-establishment. But also, all the other people who were supporting Imran Khan in the past...
डबल डाउन हो गए, वो तो विंडिकेट हो गए, वो तो कहते थे कि ये निज़ाम ही ख़राब है, ये तो हम सबको नहीं छोड़ेंगे। एंड में उनके सारे जो कंस्पिरेसी थीरीज थी वो सच होते हुए नज़र आ गई उन्हें। तो वो ये जो कल्ट लाइक फॉलोइंग की बात करते हैं, ये बात नहीं करते वो मेंटालिटी ओवर टाइम डेवलप कैसे होती है।
यार
स्मोक के नीचे आग होती है
यार, हर घर से भुट्टो निकलेगा, रोटी कपड़ा मकान, भुट्टो अभी जिंदा है, ये कल्ट नहीं है?
मेरे ख्याल है पाकिस्तान का सबसे पुराना कल्ट है करंटली पॉलिटिकल सफेयर में।
जब अल्ताफ़ भाई पीर साहब होते थे कराची में, वो कल्ट नहीं था?
जी कल्ट था।
जमात उलमा इस्लाम कल्ट नहीं है? यार
ऐसे सुफियान आप रियलाइज़ नहीं करते क्योंकि आपको इतनी समझ नहीं है। फैशिज्म इमरान खान ने ईजाद किया, आपको नहीं पता, मुझे भी नहीं पता था, हिटलर को भी नहीं पता था।
उसने डायरेक्टली हिटलर से सीखा है?
नहीं, हिटलर को उसने सिखाया था। अच्छा। हिटलर तो बच्चा है।
अच्छा, आप क्या बात कर रहे हैं? There was baby Hitler, Imran Khan went back in time, taught him fascism and came back.
Actually he taught him and Mussolini. अच्छा, चलो मैं यूरोप आ ही रहा हूँ तो मैं इकट्ठे कर देता हूँ।
That's how he learned so much about Europe.
ये आपको नहीं पता ना? ये बातें सिर्फ नदीम फारूक पराचा को पता है, ठीक है?
This makes a lot of sense.
और पराचा साहब भी उधर मौजूद थे, जहाँ भी दुनिया में लिबरल लोगों के साथ ज्यादती हुई है, फारूक पराचा साहब वहाँ पे मौजूद होते थे। ये मेरा ख्याल है कि टॉपिक ना अब इतना अबसर्ड रेल्म में चला गया है कि आई थिंक एक रीजनेबल आदमी इन लोगों को सीरियसली नहीं ले सकता। जब आप ये चीज़ें पढ़ते हैं, इनमें डीप डाइव करते हैं, तो आपको हंसी आना शुरू हो जाती है।
Yeah, listen to this, okay? This guy who's supposedly again anti-establishment.
Yeah.
But if, as the Chinese government statement recently described it, the Pakistan army is the defender of Pakistan's national security and stability, same type of thing that Aisha Siddiqa is saying in her article, its leaders cannot afford to be swayed by either the mob, i.e. democracy, or the ideological spirit of military family members and retired officers. Okay?
ये बड़ा anti-democracy statement है।
क्रश कर दो।
नहीं, anti-democracy है, simple as that।
Washington DC में बैठा हुआ, ठीक है? What is he peddling? An anti-democratic movement headed by the military against the dangerous populist Imran Khan in Pakistan.
It's the same thing जो यहाँ पे again we refer back to it, कराची लिटरेरी फेस्टिवल में पेडल हो रही थी चीज़। ये इतनी मसलन दूर नहीं है। In fact, it's exactly almost the same reference that is being given.
Again, you're trying to say that the late Lieutenant General Hamid Gul, for example, often bragged that he put his Islamic faith in his own resolve to protect Pakistan from external and internal enemies above his loyalty to the chain of command or to Pakistan's constitution. But Gul's bragging, is tarah se to every general puts his chain of command above Pakistan's constitution.
Yeah, actually, you know what? He's defeated his earlier point. So the army is actually not divided because the serving officers will never go out of the chain of command. Gul proves that.
Gul's bragging came largely after retirement.
बात समझ गए आप?
हाँ, नहीं, बिल्कुल।
तो जो आर्मी का डिस्प्यूट है वो उसने खुद ही रिफ्यूट कर दिया। होता है कि दोस्तों जब आप झूठ बोलते हो ना, तो वो अक्सर पकड़ा जाता है, आप अपने ही गुंजल में फंस जाते हो. जो इसने इनिशियल गुंजल बनाया था कि आर्मी बहुत डिवाइडेड है, ये बहुत डेंजरस है, ये स्टोरी बेची.
These last, again, same type of thing that Aisha Siddiqa was calling for in more dabe hue alfaz, right? The most, Pakistan's army chief has to take into account the sentiments of his officers and troops, but at the end of the day, the decisions of the army high command prevail. Like you're saying, defeats the previous argument. We are currently seeing a massive effort by Imran Khan and his supporters to sway the high command. Of course, attacking military installations will probably dent that effort significantly. And you go back to Aisha Siddiqa's article, okay, and you see serving and retired officers have explicitly called for General Munir to take a softer approach towards Imran Khan, which she is against, clearly in this article.
Yes.
It is widely known in Pakistan that members of some military families participated in last May's protests over how Mr. Khan was being treated. I suppose she means Khatija Shah.
I was actually going to say this. I think
Which is, again, a very dangerous type of gesture to make.
she's actually not a military family, to be honest. They've not been involved in the military 2 नस्लों से, right? 2 नस्लें पीछे जाएं तो उनका मिलिट्री इन्वॉल्वमेंट आता है, और वो भी ननियाल से, ददयाल से नहीं आता, जो टेक्निकल लिनिएज होती है मुस्लिम नेशन
But the
स्टेट्स में.
reason why Khadija Shah was persecuted by the state on completely false, fictitious, Kafkaesque, trumped-up charges was because she was from a military family, according to their definition.
लेकिन एक्चुअली वो फैशिज्म के ज़ुमरे में नहीं आता, बिकॉज फैशिज्म रीडिफाइन हुआ था पोस्ट 9th में दोबारा से. आपको उसको समझना पड़ेगा. ऑल जोक्स अपार्ट, फैशिज्म तब है जब एक डेमोक्रेटिकली इलेक्टेड लीडर पॉपुलेशन की विल इन्फोर्स करे, लेकिन जब मिलिट्री चीफ करे तो वो फैशिज्म नहीं होता, वो एक्चुअली मुल्क के दफा में होता है.
हाँ, वो pragmatism है.
जी, बेसिकली यू सी चॉइस ऑफ वर्ड्स क्या है यहाँ पे, कि जो चीज़ देखें, आई अंडरस्टैंड कि जमहूरियत के अंदर माइनॉरिटी सेफ गार्ड्स होते हैं, वो चीज़ समझ आती है, लेकिन एक पॉपुलेशन की फॉरेन पॉलिसी विल करती है कि आप अमेरिका की अलायंस छोड़ें.
वैसे तो मिलिट्री भी एक माइनॉरिटी है ना, तो
यार
उसके
ये भी
राइट्स के भी को भी सेफगार्ड होने चाहिए.
एक्चुअली वो बड़ी कमज़ोर माइनॉरिटी है. देखिए ना, उनके पास पैसे हैं, मुल्क भूखा नंगा है. बाजवा साहब ने कहा था टैंकों को जंग लग गया है, ये बहुत ख़तरे की बात है. मेरा ख्याल है कि ज़कात जो हम देते हैं वो पाक फ़ौज को लग रही है. अब आप दे सकते हैं ज़कात. आई थिंक एक चीज़ जो इमरान खान आई डोंट नो सक्सेसफुली की दानिस्ता या ना दानिस्ता हुई है, जब उसने हर किसी को नंगा करके चौक में खड़ा किया ना, अब कोई कपड़े वापस पहन नहीं सकता, आप जो मर्ज़ी कर लें. 71 में वो नहीं हुआ क्योंकि वेस्ट पाकिस्तान और ईस्ट का बहुत डिफरेंस था आपस में. हम बजाते कौम उनको छोटा समझते थे, हैंस द टर्म 2%. लेकिन अब यहाँ पे जब आपने पंजाब भी रेप कर दिया, KPK भी कर दिया, बलूचिस्तान कर दिया, सिंध भी कर दिया, अब आप कहाँ मुँह छुपाएंगे? आप अफ़गानिस्तान से भी कोई मेजर गेन नहीं ले सके, कश्मीर भी आपने फोरफिट कर दिया, तो अब आपके पास कोई राह नहीं है चीज़ जिसके पीछे आप लोगों को रैली कर सकें.
By the way, now first of all, I think every Pakistani would want, or now this is again, we can go into this because again it's very contradictory. I think every Pakistani would want a strong army, a united army, an army that is capable of defending the country, a professional army, a technologically well-equipped army, a well-funded army, but that doesn't mean that the army has to be involved in politics.
That's very simple. इंडिया की आर्मी ये हर चीज़ है ना जो आप कह रहे हैं.
Every single thing.
हैसियत नहीं है वहाँ पे चीफ की कि वो एक MLA को हाथ लगाए. MLA इट्स नॉट अलाउड. अमेरिका की आर्मी कमज़ोर है, दुनिया की ह्यूमन हिस्ट्री की सबसे स्ट्रॉन्ग आर्मी है. दिस आइडिया कि पाकिस्तान, जो ये आर्मी ऑफिसर्स में और क्लियरली हकानी साहब के दिमाग में है कि पाकिस्तान की आर्मी फंडामेंटली यूनिक है क्योंकि प्रैग्मेटिक लोग वहाँ बैठे हैं जो एक्सलेंट डिसीजन मेकिंग करते हैं, ऑल्दो एट द सेम टाइम मुझे कहते हैं कि 75 साल में उन्होंने तबाही भी बहुत की है.
So here's the question, right? Is that why would somebody, this is just something to think about, we don't have a definitive answer, we can speculate. Why would Dr. Aisha Siddiqa, who has exposed the army's
Stupid
involvement
decisions
in the Pakistan economy, expose the army's corruption, not now, for decades?
जी.
Why would Hussain Haqqani, who has spoken up against the army publicly, why would they both be saying that the army is the essential institution in Pakistan?
I mean, if we're speculating,
Using similar language
if we're speculating
in foreign publications.
I'll tell you, if we're speculating, the initial blame that the army put on both these people was that they basically work for a foreign agenda, right? Now the foreign agenda sort of aligning with the current military establishment. Without taking names, right? Let's say it's not even the US, it's just some global superpower, right? And okay, so most people don't understand is that we are living in the American empire. Technically, the entire world is like post World War II and defeat of USSR. उनका एक loose control है. The idea of how empires operate evolve कर गया है. So neo-colonialism sort of operates differently from classic colonialism. So to have this idea कि जो हाकमे वक्त है पूरी दुनिया का militarily, economically सब कुछ वो interfere नहीं करता is an absurd idea. ये human nature फितरत खिलाफ है कि मैं आप फ़तह हो चुके हैं, मैं जीत गया हूँ और मैं आपकी ज़िंदगी में इंटरफेयर ना करूँ, ये नामुमकिन है. मतलब ये जाहिलाना कॉन्सेप्ट है. अब क्योंकि जो क्रिटिकल कोर बिलीव्स इनके हैं वो अलाइन करते हैं करंट इस्टेब्लिशमेंट के साथ, तो ये बताएंगे कि वो प्रैग्मेटिक कैसे हैं. ये थ्रू आउट पाकिस्तान हिस्ट्री हुआ है. अगर आप ज़िया के इनिशियल आर्टिकल्स पढ़ें, जब भुट्टो की सुप्रेमेसी उन्होंने कम करनी थी, तो यही वेस्टर्न मीडिया आउटलेट्स आपको क्या पढ़ाते हैं. आप चले जाएँ, हिस्ट्री पढ़ लें. आप 71 की वॉर की रिपोर्टिंग देख लें. इतनी बायस तरीके से एक पर्टिकुलर साइड ने की थी अमेरिका के अंदर ही. आप सोवियत अफ़गान वॉर की रिपोर्टिंग पढ़ लें. ये थ्रू आउट होता है. प्रॉब्लम क्या है कि जिन लोगों को आपने रखा है सेफ गार्ड करने के लिए इंटेलेक्ट को, वही बिके हुए हैं. जैसा हम कहते हैं ना कि मौलवियों ने दीन को बेच दिया है, तो इन्होंने जो इंटेलेक्ट जिनकी मीरास है इन्होंने इसको बेच दिया है.
What you're saying is that their geopolitical alignments come above, before
Integrity.
and beyond any commitment to democracy.
Any commitment to any intellectual integrity or any intellectual continuity. I cannot be pro-democracy under Zia and be anti-democracy under Asim Munir. This makes no sense. You get what I'm saying? So this idea of liberal authoritarianism is actually illogical. ये इस चीज़ को किस तरह कवर करते हैं by using big words, jargon, and establishing a difference in their intellect and the population. And saying ये जाहिल हैं.
I would say one thing, we were talking about this last time also, that the overuse of World War II or pre-World War II historical analogies, in which essentially Pakistan is 1931, Hitler is the most popular political force in the country,
Yes.
and the German army allows him to come to power.
Yes.
Okay? Imran Khan is Hitler, and the Pakistan army needs to do what the German army did not do and crush Nazism.
ये actually post Nuremberg world thought है.
Crush Nazism at its infancy. That is, but what we also should remember when we're talking about the overuse of these historical analogies, right, is that the most abused historical analogy
Is that
has been
one?
1938 Munich,
Yes.
right? Every single war America has launched has always been, we cannot do what Chamberlain did, we cannot appease a Hitler-like person. Okay? Exactly the same thing is being done by Israel. The US has done exactly the same thing in every war that they've launched, whether you want to call it a neo-colonial war, a war for resources, or whatever. So you can see how that was a unique moment in human history. We should learn from it, but we
it's
shouldn't
not-
exploit it.
It's not unique. I'll tell you why. Go 40 years before that. Oh, sorry, no. When was World War I? Maybe 30 years
Yeah,
before
30
that?
years before that.
So why did Hitler become Hitler? It has to do with how you completely eviscerated nation states in World War I, right? So when you castrate somebody and leave them out to dry, what do you think is going to happen, right? So Hitler is a byproduct of unfair post-World War I practices. This is what people don't want to talk about. Hitler is a piece of shit. Very clearly, हम ये कह रहे हैं. It's not a defense of Hitler. But this rise of fascist movements throughout Europe did not happen in isolation. It's not like somebody got up one day and said, it's a fun idea, हम fascist हो जाते हैं. आप एक माहौल पैदा करते हैं. So for example, पाकिस्तान आर्मी के खिलाफ जो इस वक्त नफरत है लोगों के दिल में, ये 75 साल की प्राइमिंग है. आप मारी जा रहे हो तो कौम फाइनली जवाब दे देती है और वो दे रही है. उसी तरह उस कौम ने सपोर्ट किया हिटलर को उसके जाहिलाना सोच में, बिकॉज आपने उनको प्राइम किया उसमें. देखें, अब यहाँ पर थोड़ा सा मैं इस्लामिक पर्सपेक्टिव दे दूँ कि जंग ख़त्म होने के भी असूल होते हैं और प्रिजनर्स ऑफ वॉर और उन नेशन से क्या करना है उसके कानून होते हैं. दुनिया ये कानून तब डेवलप करी थी जब क्लासिक एम्पायर से मूव हो रहा था न्यू एज एम्पायर्स में, और जो बर्बरियत की गई फाइनेंशियली जगहों की, निस्तो नाबूद कर दिए गए, तो वो आपको आज जापान में नज़र आती है, वो आपको करंट जर्मनी में नज़र आती है. ये absurd टू बिलीव है कि आप मेजर प्लेयर दुनिया में हो सकते हो विदाउट अ स्ट्रॉन्ग आर्मी. इट्स इम्पॉसिबल टू बिलीव, राइट? जर्मनी कभी मेजर प्लेयर नहीं बन सकता, जापान नहीं बन सकता. उन्होंने ग़ुलामी एक्सेप्ट कर लिया एक पर्टिकुलर एम्पायर की, और जब ये एम्पायर शिफ्ट होएगा तो इन मुल्कों को बहुत नुकसान होएगा. जिनकी ताकतवर फ़ौज होती है वो दोनों साइड्स खेल सकते हैं. ये पाकिस्तान आर्मी का क्रिटिकल रोल था जो कायदे आज़म ने डिफ़ाइन किया था. लोग ये समझते नहीं बात. दर हकीकत हम हिस्ट्री के उस चौराहे पे खड़े हुए हैं कि जहाँ पे हमने हिस्ट्री के एनालिसिस पोस्ट वर्ल्ड वॉर टू या वर्ल्ड वॉर टू से शुरू किया. उससे पहले हम नहीं मानते कुछ भी. और ये एक्चुअली पोस्ट मॉडर्न थाट है कि नेशन स्टेट्स जब से क्रिएट हुए हैं हम बस सिर्फ वो हिस्ट्री को एनालाइज करेंगे. हालांकि ह्यूमन हिस्ट्री उससे इज़ फार मोर रिच है. लाइक आप अगर पूरा मुग़ल एम्पायर ही स्टडी करें तो उसमें बहुत सारी सब कॉन्टिनेंट की हकीकतें जो सामने खुल जाती हैं आपकी. उसके बाद जो ब्रिटिश रूल है 300 साल का, उसको एनालाइज करें तो उन्होंने भी मुग़ल अंडरस्टैंडिंग के ट्रोप्स इस्तेमाल करके सब कॉन्टिनेंट को कंट्रोल किया था. उनको वही तो आती नहीं थी. तो ये एक इनजस्टिस है. और ये मेरा जेन्युइन बिलीफ है उसमें कि ये इंटेलेक्चुअल लेजीनेस होती है कि बस मेरा प्री कंसीव नोशन है, मुझे 45 में 40 में 38 में एग्जाम्पल मिली, मेरा काम हो गया. ठीक. और ये सबसे बड़ा शिकार हमारी करंट एकेडेमिया पूरी दुनिया में है. चाहे वो इस्लामिक एकेडेमिया हो जो एक अजीब एम्पायर स्टेज ऑफ फिक्र में बिलीव करती है और पोस्ट मॉडर्न नहीं आ रही,
हाँ.
और या वो न्यू एज फिलॉसफी हो लिबरल्स की या जनरली वेस्ट की जो सिर्फ दुनिया को 200 साल की हिस्ट्री में देख रहा है.
I mean, you know, I think it's very interesting also to look at this in the context of Pakistani arms going to Ukraine.
Yes.
Right? And the thing is that one of the most useful things that Pakistan has done for the United States, the Western Alliance, is the provision of 155 millimeter artillery shells for the war in Ukraine. Because Russian production of artillery shells is actually greater than the entire Western Alliance combined.
Oh, okay.
And that is why the US has had to purchase 155 millimeter artillery shells and many other armaments which are required for large artillery wars, for which the US is not prepared.
Yes, it's not.
Right? From countries like Pakistan.
From non-Western allies.
From non-Western allies. And these armaments are considered to be somewhat primitive. Yes. But again, because there's so many artillery pieces along the line of control, Pakistan is one of the world's leading manufacturers of 155 millimeter artillery shells.
Because हम continuously small scale war में रहते हैं.
क्योंकि हम continuously small scale war में रहते हैं. Which again, it's unfortunate that there's not enough
tech
awareness of the fact that there's a constant low level battle going on. Well, for the last 2-3 years, actually that has changed. But for many years before
काफी देर से इस तरह ही था.
ऐसे ही होता था line of control पे. And दोनों sides पे innocent लोग, innocent civilians मारे जाते थे. So what I'm saying is that was a clear benefit that the US got. If you think that Imran Khan would not have sold those weapons to Ukraine or sold to America for them to give to Ukraine. We don't know if that's true or not.
Like my personal
it's
belief is
possible that he would have.
I think he would have. Because I believe
he
that
may not have even had a choice.
That's what I'm saying. Nobody has control over military such decisions, right? So I think if the establishment had decided to do this, it would have happened regardless, right? There's also something else that we have to understand. Do you think Imran Khan just went to Russia of his own accord? This is absurd to believe.
Yeah, he was just hung out to dry.
Yes. Basically, when Bajwa finally understood that America is going to doom some kind of intervention, we don't know what kind of intervention, yet the powers that be would somehow push Pakistan into a corner post the Russia meeting, तो पूरा narrative 48 घंटे में change होता है. आप post Russia इमरान खान मीडिया कवरेज फॉलो करें.
He became the complete fall guy.
जी फ्लिप हो गया. एक्चुअली आई थिंक उसका जो सरप्राइज था जो उसके इंटरव्यूज में भी आया था, बाद में उसके बयान में भी आया था, he was shocked.
I think one could say that the military or Bajwa by that point wanted to get rid of Imran Khan.
ये भी हो सकता है.
And the reasons for Bajwa wanting to get rid of Imran Khan was not because there was double-digit inflation. It was not because the economy had been mishandled. It was for none of those reasons, right? He wanted to get rid of Imran Khan probably because Imran Khan was not as compliant as he should have been, and because of the need to secure the military's economic interests in Pakistan.
I think ये वो वाली बात है कि आहिस्ता आहिस्ता वो अर्दोगान लेवल पे जा रहा था.
Yes.
आई थिंक उसको मिटिगेट करने के लिए, बिकॉज पाकिस्तान आर्मी ऑब्वियसली रिसर्च करती है, ऐसे बिल्कुल आइसोलेशन एग्जिस्ट करती है, बिकॉज राइज ऑफ अर्दोगान सबके सामने मैप्ड आउट है. तो फियर ऑफ अर्दोगान ऑफ पाकिस्तान बहुत प्रेवलेंट है मिलिट्री इस्टेब्लिशमेंट के अंदर. तो जहाँ पे उन्होंने इमरान खान को पॉपुलिस्ट बना के रूल करना था, बट दे ऑलवेज फियर्ड कि वो अर्दोगान ना बन जाए बेसिकली, कि वो एक्चुअली मिलिट्री को ही ओवर पावर कर
ले. It's much more useful for the military to rule through people who are not as popular. They're popular but not too popular.
Yes, yes.
But the thing is that under those circumstances, then what you do is that you hang Imran Khan out to dry. You say he wants to tilt towards Russia, okay? And you use the influence of the United States, or with the blessings of the United States, you remove him from power. Right? Yeah. And now the Pakistan military's role is endorsed by the Biden administration as a bulwark of stability, reliable partner in Pakistan, and holding back the dangerous populist wave
is actually
headed by Imran Khan.
The same nonsense.
Again, back to this article.
Same nonsense that we got initially in the Musharraf years. In the first couple of years, basically up until I would say 2004, this was the same narrative that we were getting, that sometimes it's necessary to deal with the heavy hand. Log bevkoof hai na? This actually is probably this idea is actually rooted in elitism, right? That this nation state is so backward and the people are so jahil that they don't have the electoral sanity to rule over themselves. All these articles actually reek of this. In fact, the reason why populist has become like a gali is because of a fundamental belief that the voter is just jahil. This idea that all five fingers are not equal, right, is actually misinterpreted. So all five fingers are not equal, but they're all performing different functions that are equally important. So the vote of someone that lives in Dipalpur on a zameen, jiski day-to-day sustenance living hai, is as important and critical because his opinion affects the issues that affect him as to, let's say, my vote. This is what democracy is based upon, like having different ideas come finally together. Like in Pakistan, mein hamesha a particular kind of idea has been pushed.
I think what's also very interesting is that a justification, and it shouldn't be a justification, for what is happening now is that ye hamesha hota raha hai. But you've also opposed it every time it happened in the past.
These people have.
Right?
These are the people that have opposed it.
They've opposed it every time it's happened in the past. Or there are a lot of liberal commentators who, again, have grown up reading Aisha Siddiqa and being inspired by her work. And her work is very important. It's just disappointing when she writes something like this in the New York Times, which is literally titled, "What's Happening in Pakistan," or "What's Going On in Pakistan." So a New York Times reader is going to pick up the paper, New York Times, and is going to say, whatever the New York Times publishes probably has a lot of credibility.
Yes.
Okay? They're not going to open up this diagram over here, right? And see that the double-digit inflation under Imran Khan was 1/3 the double-digit inflation that took place after Imran Khan.
Yes.
Koi nahi dekhega. They're just going to say that Aisha Siddiqa has said that Imran Khan mishandled the economy.
Yes, you're right. I mean, because we live in a globalized world, right? Where to assume that there is not cooperation and information being shared between governments across the world. So the image building of the Pakistan government in Imran Khan is actually being done incorrectly for government officials in the Biden administration. So जब वो आके बयानियाँ देते हैं अपना, तो वो इस तरह के आर्टिकल्स पे बहुत चीज़ें बेस कर रहे होते हैं या इनको जवाज़ बना रहे होते हैं गलत ओपिनियंस देने के. बिकॉज अगर आपको याद हो तो अदम एतमाद आया था इन्फ्लेशन की वजह से. उस पर लिखा हुआ है कि महंगाई को कॉम्बैट करने के लिए हम खान साहब को निकाल रहे हैं, और उसके पोस्ट जो महंगाई हुई वो
जो डबल और ट्रिपल थी,
बस 71 की याद आ गई थी लोगों को.
नो मतलब इट वाज इवन मोर देन व्हाट टुक प्लेस इन 1970s.
Yes.
उसकी कोई बात, मतलब उसकी बात नहीं हो रही है इसमें. कहना चाहिए ना कि the double digit inflation under Imran Khan, the last month of his rule,
was not tripled. As bad.
It tripled under
the PDM and then the interim.
You know,
right? Actually, इसमें एक और भी बदयांती है. They have not talked about the way the interim government actually became pawns to everything the military establishment wanted to do and how they're being rewarded currently in the political setup. Like there are 3 people, Faisal Wada, Anwarul Haq Kakar and Mohsin Naqvi, that have been made senators unopposed. One from Sindh, one from Balochistan, one from Punjab. This is absurd.
Achha, look at this. Sorry, I'm interrupting you. I'm just bringing this up. This is Hussain Haqqani writing in Foreign Policy. Okay? This arrogance prompted him, meaning Imran Khan, to tell his followers to attack the army headquarters in the city of Rawalpindi, burn a commander's house in Lahore, and attack other military facilities, according to reports in Pakistani intelligence. The same Pakistani intelligence that you have always accused. Right?
Yes,
and statements from former PTI members. Which statements are these from former PTI members? The statements that were taken in the press conferences.
Yeah, Sufyan,
Okay.
what you don't
What is the
understand is
credibility
that
of this
basically
statement?
DG ISPR wrote this. This is what it looks like. That ISPR literally sent out a publication to Haqqani and word for word he's saying it as truth, reporting it as fact in the Foreign Policy magazine. This is बदयांती की भी इंतहा होती है. मोदी की एक बड़ी फेमस स्टेटमेंट है, हिपोक्रेसी की भी सीमा होती है, which basically means that कुछ तो शर्म कर लो. ठीक है? This is just absurd.
Khan's style of politics has also brought new levels of incivility to Pakistan's political discourse. Politicians have I mean, after he was removed as prime minister last year, he described the politicians who had ousted him as thieves, dacoits, and traitors. Okay? As if these politicians haven't been attacking each other for decades.
Actually,
right?
they've used exact these words.
Against each other.
Yes.
Mr. 10% was not invented by Imran Khan, no?
No.
Okay. The personal attacks that PMLN or at that time, what is it called? IGI or whatever, made against Benazir Bhutto also happened way before Imran Khan's involvement in politics.
I mean, what happened to Fatma Jinnah has nothing to do with Imran Khan, even,
obviously.
Right? The condemnation that was received by East Pakistan during the Bhutto campaigns has nothing to do with Imran Khan as well. Actually, Sufyan, the more we read this, तो मुझे तो यही अखज़ होता है, क्या कहते हैं कि
But these are the voices that represent Pakistan globally. This is a very influential paper.
You know
foreign
what?
Policy.
This actually comes from that discussion that we have, is that this idea that a certain class in Pakistan has access to world political affairs, which the majority of Pakistan does not have, and they can paint any picture whatsoever.
Yeah.
ये उस चीज़ की मैं कहता हूँ कि सबसे बेहतरीन मिसाल है.
This is the scary thing, right? That when you see that these are people who have tremendous influence in terms of how the world sees Pakistan. And this is how they're using their influence. By completely misrepresenting.
नहीं, झूठ बोल रहे हैं.
Yeah.
मैं आप तो बहुत पोलाइट हैं, झूठ बोल रहे हैं. ठीक है, लाइक इंसेन बात है ना कि लाइक absurd लाया है. लेकिन डू यू थिंक जो इसके रिएक्शन में अब पीटीआई ने मुहिम शुरू की है कि हम जाके इंटरनेशनली हर जगह ढंडोरा पीटेंगे, इज अ काउंटर टू दिस, या वो इट्स अ सेपरेट मूवमेंट ऑल टुगेदर?
Yeah, I mean, so
I don't agree with it. I think वो काफ़ी stupidly हो रही है. But is it a reaction to such things, or is it just an independent thing to gain access to power corridors in America?
There are 5 other things that he said that obviously did not come to pass. But I'll tell you what I think. I think that there actually needs to be a pragmatic recognition that how the West sees Pakistan matters. Because this is how Pakistan is being represented. And if you don't have if you don't have a voice to counter this, there ain't no way that Western capitals are going to support democracy in Pakistan. Because democracy is too dangerous, right?
Yeah.
The people who support democracy are too jahil. Okay? So you need to support the military rulers who are going to make the world safe, right?
Yes.
So that nukes are not going to fall into the hands of crazy people like
So
Imran
global
Khan.
security versus democracy
So
for
you
an
need
individual
to,
nation
so you
state.
have to lobby and convince them that that's not true.
तो अफगानिस्तान में जंग करनी है to put democracy, right? और पाकिस्तान में espionage करना है to ensure democracy नहीं आती. हमसाए हैं ना. I don't think Pakistan is as religiously right wing as Afghanistan. Like there's no मुकाबला. वो हनफी मज़हब में इतना डूबे हुए हैं गलूब के अंदर इस वक्त कि वो तो एक्सट्रीम राइट पे ऑपरेट कर
I
रहे हैं.
mean, look at this way, right? Like if Afghanistan was going to elect a Taliban government, okay, then there would be many reasons to support military. Well, okay, why do we have to speculate? The Ashraf Ghani government and the Karzai governments were not popularly elected governments in that sense, right?
I mean, they were just Kabul-based governments.
They were Kabul-based. They were Kabul-based governments, and again, no way am I saying that the Taliban are doing good things in Afghanistan.
No, that's
Quite
a
the
separate
opposite.
thing.
That's
right?
a totally separate thing,
thing.
right? Totally separate thing. But the fact of the matter is that the US was indefinitely propping up client governments in order to prevent Afghanistan from falling into the hands of Taliban, who are popular in Afghanistan. Whether they should be or shouldn't be or any of those things is a different matter.
But is it our
right?
decision to make?
Well,
that is the question.
Well, I would put it this way. The Taliban are also not ruling by force of arms. There's not going to be any democracy in Afghanistan.
Yeah, 100%.
Okay? In theory, if there was a democratically elected government in Afghanistan, I would support that government.
Yes. Okay. So that
with
makes
minimum
you,
safeguards for
for minorities.
For
and stuff.
minority
So
rights.
that makes you principally consistent, right? I don't support any dictatorial regime the Taliban has there. They should hold free and fair elections and let the people of Afghanistan decide who they want to govern. And if that be a pro-Taliban government, sure.
The Taliban are also a military dictatorship. That's
what I'm
actually-
saying, right?
Yeah.
So right now, the agreement that America and India have with Afghanistan is hypocritical. So the investments that China, Afghanistan, and China, India, and America are doing in Afghanistan should not happen. Why don't you invest in North Korea or Iran? Iran is more democratic than Afghanistan. There's no comparison.
Iran is a geopolitical threat to the United States.
Why is it?
Regardless of whether they're democratic or not.
So this is what I'm saying now. So you have used different metrics throughout your history and applied them to different nation states, which is why the entire Middle East and Southeast Asia is screwed.
Which is now people are being able to see through.
Except Pervez Hoodboy.
Yes.
Right? I mean, the Jahil on the street.
Now we've unfortunately mentioned Pervez Hoodboy, who hasn't written any of this stuff.
Hussain Haqqani. I'm so sorry.
No, this is ridiculous.
Yes.
I mean, look at what he's writing. Okay, now this guy is apparently like a really smart person who understands Pakistani politics. Okay, it says that facing repression, the PTI may be reduced to a Khan fan club, angry about its hero's circumstances, but with few serious ideas about weakening the army's grip or otherwise transforming Pakistan. They won the election.
I mean, that is the only way to weaken someone's grip, is to win the election.
Is to win the election, okay?
Actually,
Now,
you know what this seems like? He's trying to push them into a narrative to go vigilante on the state, which is actually what the establishment does want.
But this is, you see, again, same thing. The generals cannot allow him back into power because of his potential for revenge.
Did he really take revenge against anybody? Like, even when he was in power and all the generals were for taking revenge, he let Nawaz Sharif go, right? I mean, he didn't really pursue any of the major cases.
What is it? I mean, look, you have two very influential writers saying that saying that Imran Khan is dangerous because if he comes back into power, he will take revenge.
But Sufyan, did he take revenge
against whom is another question.
Sorry guys for the hard cut. We had to take a small break to use the bathroom and stuff because we obviously any conversation with Sufyan is long and it's very informative. Sufyan, just to like sum up the conversation that we've had, at the point of reading those articles and going through them is to explain how generally geopolitics works, how priming is done of both the population, like in Pakistan, the government in Pakistan, the Biden administration, or any foreign power. So what's like a few takeaways that you see from these articles and the positions that they've taken in those articles?
So I think there are a couple of things. I think that we need to understand that in the West, Pakistan is viewed through a geostrategic, geopolitical lens, right? Because of, and so Pakistan is valuable because of where it's located, because it has borders with China and Afghanistan and Iran, because it's to the west of India. Pakistan is very important because it is a nuclear state. And the reason why it's important is because there's a constant fear that its nuclear weapons will fall into the wrong hands, which, as we discussed, is an overblown fear. And Pakistan is potentially a place where there is a lot of support for right-wing Islamic movements or Islamist movements or the connection between Pakistan and the Taliban. Like, these are the main kind of themes through which or how the West views Pakistan. So what if the West is going to want a government in Pakistan which is going to prevent Talibanization in Pakistan, prevent nuclear weapons from falling into the wrong hands, provide geopolitical support to the United States' or support to the United States' geopolitical goals. In this case, Ukraine is one of those goals. And provide essentially access to other parts of the region where the US might want to launch military interventions. These are the most important things for the United States and for the West generally, but primarily for the United States because that is the imperial power. Now, if Pakistanis want a voice and they want the West to believe that democracy is very important for them, then they need to raise their voices locally, but also globally. Okay. And I actually believe that one of the reasons why we went through these articles in so much detail was these are people who inform the West's view of Pakistan by playing to all of the same stereotypes and themes that we just talked about, right? So these are people who are scholars of Pakistan who are saying that the army is the indispensable institution.
Too big to fail.
Too big to fail. These are the people who are saying that the army is a bulwark against Islamic extremism, against dangerous anti-American populism.
Pro-progressivism and all that stuff.
And so if that means that if Pakistanis would like the West to support a democratic future in Pakistan, then they need to speak up, and alternate voices need to be heard. Again, not just in Pakistan, but globally. Other Pakistanis should be writing for the New York Times or the Washington Post or Foreign Policy, okay? And they need to explain why democracy in Pakistan doesn't mean handing over Pakistan to an irrational, emotional, ideologically driven mob. It means that Pakistanis want to claim the future for themselves. They want economic progress. They want to live in peace. They want the country to develop. Okay? And so, but they have to get their voices out there. Otherwise, the articles that we just saw are going to dominate the discourse in the West because they already play to the same kind of fears that the West has of Pakistan and the same stereotypes that the West has of Pakistan. So if we want our democracy to be taken seriously, so let's say just simply, we want people to think, we want the West to think that the fact that the election was rigged is a big deal and a bad thing.
As it would be in any Western country.
As it would be in any Western country. Instead, the West is thinking, essentially, shukar hai ke it was rigged, because otherwise we'd have this dangerous right-wing populist.
Yes.
Shukar hai ke General Asim Munir is there to keep things
under check.
And we might need him to be there for a little bit longer. Okay. So instead, what we should be saying is that Pakistanis are ready for democracy. They should, and their democratic aspirations should be supported. And they want the same things that people in the West want. And they don't want to be ruled by dictators, military dictators, or hereditary dynasties, or any of those types of things.
आई थिंक जो सुफियान भाई ने बात की है, इसको अगर हम एक कंक्लूजन की तरफ लेके जाएं तो बहुत ज़रूरी है इस वक्त कि आप लोकली भी और इंटरनेशनल भी अपनी जमहूरियत को क्लेम करें. पाकिस्तान में 75 साल से प्रॉब्लम ये था कि जो पाकिस्तान के शहरी थे वो जमहूरियत को क्लेम नहीं डालते थे, वो आमरीत को वेलकम करते रहे हैं हिस्टोरिकली. लेकिन हकीकी जमहूरियत पाने के लिए आपको एक दफ़ा इंटरनेशनली भी ये क्लेम डालनी पड़ेगी. जिस तरह साउथ अफ्रीका ने इस वक्त इसराइल के ख़िलाफ़ मुकदमा लड़ रहे हैं, आपको सिमिलर सॉर्ट ऑफ मुकदमा लड़ना है अपनी फ्रीडम के लिए इंटरनेशनल प्रेस के अंदर. और जिन लोगों को रसाई है करंटली इंटरनेशनल प्रेस के लिए, हमने 2 बड़े क्रिटिकल फिगर्स के आर्टिकल्स पढ़ के इसलिए सुनाए हैं ताकि आपको पता चल सके कि मुल्क की जो तस्वीर पेंट की जा रही है बाहर, वो एक्चुअली जमहूरियत के ख़िलाफ़ है और आमरीत की हमायत में है, और ये लॉन्ग टर्म बहुत नुकसानदेह है. अल्हम्दुलिल्लाह सोशल मीडिया की एग्जिस्टेंस की वजह से आप अपना पैगाम बाहर पहुंचा सकते हैं, आप मूवमेंट्स में शामिल हो सकते हैं. ये प्रो पीटीआई मूवमेंट नहीं होनी चाहिए, ये प्रो जमहूरियत मूवमेंट होनी चाहिए. क्योंकि आज इमरान खान है, 20 साल बाद नहीं होगा. ज़िंदगी मौत बरहक है. कोई भी बंदा यहाँ 800 साल की ज़िंदगी जीने नहीं आया. तो अपनी और अपनी नस्ल के लिए बचाने के लिए आपको जमहूरियत का साथ देना होगा. सुफियान भाई, बहुत शुक्रिया आपके आने का. इट्स ऑलवेज अ प्लेजर टू हैव यू एंड वी कीप लर्निंग. And inshallah, hope to talk to you again soon. Maybe with a third guest.
Yes.
Thank you.